Chapter 269. After the battle fortresses and sky-patrolling battleships had run amok, the disciples of the righteous noble sect, equipped with standard armor, formed an attack formation of 30,000 people, and carried out a destructive cleansing attack on the Yuan-Ling world army that had been forcefully scattered. The armies of the other forces also fought fiercely on the battlefield with their own war weapons. On the battlefield that spanned tens of millions of miles, the experts of the Central Plains, the Southern Wasteland, and Yuan-Ling world fought together. Countless powerful attacks collided and confronted each other, and the surging energy raged. Countless experts fought fiercely, and the mountains collapsed and the earth cracked, and the wind and clouds surged. Every moment millions of living creatures died. The vast world was filled with a foul wind and a rain of blood, and the sky was dark and the earth was dim. The battle below the Myth Realm was already like this, so the battle on the Myth Realm battlefield above the ninth heaven was even more fierce and mighty. More than 200,000 Myth Realm experts broke out in an earth-shattering battle in the endless world above the ninth heaven that spanned billions of miles. The Myth Realm experts whose auras filled the world moved swiftly through the vast world, crossing space and distance. They circulated the vast and powerful divine origin in their bodies and launched powerful divine abilities at their enemies. Tens of thousands of divine abilities were released and collided with each other, stirring up a boundless energy storm that caused the nine heavens to tremble and the world to lose its color. In this battle, Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu were the focus of the siege. Because the number of Myth Realm experts in Yuan-Ling world was much more than that in the Central Plains and the Southern Wasteland. In addition, Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu had shown shocking strength before. Therefore, in order to win this time, the three strongest people, Ancestor Myriad Spell, Ancestor Star Palace, and Ancestor Prophet Ancestor, led all the experts of the sixth heaven and the fifth heaven of the Myth Realm, as well as 500 experts of the fourth heaven of the Myth Realm, to form a powerful attack formation to besiege Yi Tianzong. Ling Xinyue and Shen Yu were besieged by 900 experts of the fourth heavens of Myth Realm. The experts of the fourth heavens of Myth Realm from Yuan-Ling world formed a powerful attack formation, and their auras merged into one to suppress Ling Xinyue and Shen Yu. They wanted to take down Ling Xinyue and Shen Yu in the shortest time possible. The remaining Myth Realm experts of Yuan-Ling world fought with more than 84,000 experts of the Myth Realm from the Central Plains and the Southern Wasteland. There were about 1,800 Myth Realm experts in Haoran, except for Yi Haoran, Yi Tianzong's family, Ye's family members. Myth Realm experts of Myth Realm. Yi. Therefore, the strength of the Myth Realm experts of the Hao Ranjin sect was generally much stronger than the experts of the same level in Yuan-Ling world. Therefore, every Myth Realm expert of the Hao Ranjin sect could fight at least 1 against 2. For example, Yi Haoran, Yi Haoyun, Yi Yuanshan, Su Mingxin, Li Qingyao, Zi Yunxian, and Li Qingshi. Because they had already cultivated the 9 transformations of True God to the 4th transformation, each of them was not at a disadvantage when fighting against more than 100 experts of the 4th heavens of Myth Realm. In the entire 9 heavens Myth Realm battlefield, the experts of Yuan-Ling world had the upper hand because they had more people. However, the Myth Realm experts of the Central Plains and the Southern Wasteland were not at a disadvantage either. They fought back and forth with the people of Yuan-Ling world. The most crucial part of the entire battlefield was the battle between Yi Tianzong and the strongest camp of Yuan-Ling world. The ancestor of Yuan-Ling world, the ancestor of Myriad Dharma, the ancestor of Star Palace, and the ancestor of Divination, had experienced the terror of Yi Tianzong last time. Therefore, this time, they had prepared a powerful sealing formation and united many experts of the 4th heavens, 5th heavens, and 6th heavens of Myth Realm. They were determined to suppress or even kill Yi Tianzong. The threat of Yi Tianzong was too great. He was only at the 4th heavens of Myth Realm, but he already had such incredible strength. Once Yi Tianzong advanced to the sixth heavens of Myth Realm, they would have no power to resist. As the three ancestors who had been in charge of Yuan Ling world for more than tens of thousands of years, they had always been in control of everything. No one dared to disobey them. 3 years ago, they were easily defeated by Yi Tianzong. This made them, who had always been in control of everything, unable to tolerate Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu, the three unstable factors. In the past 3 years, they had long made up their minds to get rid of Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu. After getting rid of the three, the next step was to destroy the strongest Hao Ranjin sect, Lingyun Hall, Kunlun sect, and the 10 Holy Lands. With all kinds of information obtained from the devil race, as long as they were given time, they would sooner or later occupy the Central Plains and the Southern Wasteland. They would not be satisfied with just occupying the northern borderline and the western regions. Conquering the whole world was their goal. When Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu started the battle, they felt the determination of the masters of Yuan Ling world to kill them. Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu, who had planned to leave some leeway, suddenly changed their minds. They were also filled with the desire to kill the masters of the fourth heavens, fifth heavens, and sixth heavens of Yuan Ling world. Especially the 20 masters of the sixth heavens of Myth Realm led by Ancestor Myriad Art, Ancestor Star Palace, and Ancestor Prophet. Yi Tianzong made up his mind to kill these people. In the past 3 years, Yi Tianzong did not do nothing. He, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu hid their whereabouts and went deep into the areas where Yuan Ling world fought with the devil race many times. They captured many people of Yuan Ling world, including many masters of the Myth Realm. Through the soul search, Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu had a detailed understanding of the situation of Yuan Ling world. They also had a deeper impression of Ancestor Myriad Art, Ancestor Star Palace, and Ancestor Prophet. In order to better control and assimilate the people of Yuan Ling world in the future, Yi Tianzong originally planned to kill most of the masters of the fourth heavens of Myth Realm and above in Yuan Ling world and leave some of them alive. But he did not expect that he had taken it for granted. When the enemies of Yuan Ling world came to suppress him, Yi Tianzong suddenly laughed wildly. The murderous intent in his eyes was fierce, and he had no intention of showing mercy. Since you want to kill me, then I won't be lenient to you. He directly used a divine talisman sealed with a divine king's attack that he had exchanged with contribution points in Xiantian sect. This divine talisman contained 30% of a divine king's attack power. Yi Tianzong did not plan to engage in a protracted war. He had already experienced too many desperate situations and battles in the world battlefield. There was no need to waste time with the people of Yuan Ling world. Instead, he wanted to eliminate the enemies as quickly as possible, thereby obtaining victory in the war and reducing the casualties of the Central Plains and the Southern Wilderness to the greatest extent. Yi Tianzong faced Ancestor Myriad Art, Ancestor Star Palace, Ancestor Prophet, and nearly 700 people who were rapidly approaching, and crushed the divine talisman that contained a divine king's attack. And the moment the divine talisman was crushed, an unbelievably powerful supreme power gushed out. As soon as it appeared, this power shook heaven and earth, shattering the space-time of the profound spirit world. Nothing could stop this indescribable power. It was a supreme power that condensed the origin of the laws of heaven and earth. Even the laws of heaven and earth of the profound spirit world could only be on par with this power. Under the fearful and despairing gazes of the Myriad Art Ancestor, the Star Palace Ancestor, and the Heavenly Fate Ancestor, who were brimming with killing intent and thought that victory was within their grasp, this supreme power instantly annihilated everyone. Nearly 700 fourth heaven, fifth heaven, and sixth heaven experts of Myth Realm, including Ancestor Myriad Art, Ancestor Star Palace and Ancestor Prophet, did not have the slightest bit of resistance. In the blink of an eye, they were completely annihilated, leaving no trace behind. Just as Yi Tianzong crushed the divine talisman and annihilated the enemies in an instant, on the other side, Ling Xinyue and Shen Yu, who were surrounded by 904th heaven experts of Myth Realm with a powerful sealing formation, also took out a divine talisman each. The two divine talismans each contained 10% of a divine king's attack power. Another two unbelievably powerful supreme powers appeared, shattering the space-time of heaven and earth. The 904th heaven experts of Yuan Ling World, who were besieging Ling Xinyu and Shen Yu, were also annihilated without a trace in a flash. Chapter 270. Three inconceivable supreme forces that could shatter time and space appeared one after another. The 1,600 or so Myth 4th tier and above experts who besieged Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu from Yuan Ling World were all wiped out. This result shocked all the Myth Realm experts from Yuan Ling World. Their hearts, which had been tough and unchanging for a long time, were now filled with fear and despair. Even the Myth Realm experts from the Central Plains and the Southern Wasteland were frightened. They did not understand what method Yi Tianzong and the other two had used to make such a terrible thing happen. So many Myth Realm experts were wiped out in an instant. Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu did not care about what others thought. After wiping out the enemies who besieged them, Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu did not hesitate. They then moved through the battlefield. With the Aurora Flash Shadow, they attacked the Myth Realm experts from Yuan Ling World at a speed that left everyone in the dust. No single Myth Realm expert could withstand one attack from Yi Tianzong and the other two. In the face of Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu, the Myth Realm experts from Yuan Ling World were like ants. They were easily killed. In just a quarter of an hour, Yi Tianzong and the other two had wiped out more than 130 Myth Realm experts from Yuan Ling World. Those Myth Realm experts from Yuan Ling World wanted to gather their forces and besiege Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu again. Unfortunately, the idea was beautiful, but the reality was cruel. Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu joined hands and killed more than half of the 1,003rd Sky and 4th Sky of Myth Realm warriors who came to besiege them. After defeating the people from Yuan Ling World, who came to besiege the three of them, Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu also helped Yi Haoran and the other 6 kill their opponents quickly. In addition to more than 100 Myth Realm warriors who fled the battlefield in time when they saw the situation was not right, more than 700 Myth Realm warriors from Yuan Ling World, who were in the 3rd Sky and 4th Sky of Myth Realm, were killed. In less than an hour since the battle started, more than 2,600 Myth Realm experts were killed by Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, Shen Yu, and Yi Haoran. Among them, the Myth Realm experts from Yuan Ling World were completely wiped out. It should be noted that the total number of Myth Realm experts from Yuan Ling World was only about 10,000. But this was not enough. Without them, the overall strength and number of Myth Realm experts from Yuan Ling World still exceeded the total strength of Myth Realm experts from the Central Plains and the Southern Wasteland. Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, Shen Yu, Yi Haoran, Yi Haoyun, and the other 3 continue to shuttle through the 9 Heavens battlefield and kill Myth Realm experts from Yuan Ling World experts from Yuan Ling World. Under the Aurora Flash Shadow, Yi Tianzong and the other 3 almost ignored space and distance, rampaging through the vast battlefield. Every time they waved their hands, they would either send sword chi into the sky, or cover the sky with their palms, or suppress the world with their fists, or destroy gods with their fingers. Every time they attacked, they would take the lives of at least 1 or 2 Myth Realm experts from Yuan Ling World. Especially after they helped the Myth Realm experts from Hao Ranjin sect kill their opponents, the Myth Realm experts from Hao Ranjin sect also followed suit and helped the experts from Lingyun Hall, Kunlun sect, and the 10 Holy Lands to eliminate their opponent. Their strength was already stronger than the Myth Realm experts from Yuan Ling World at the same level to begin with. Coupled with their almost sneak attacks, the opponents from Lingyun Hall, Kunlun sect, and the 10 Holy Lands were quickly eliminated. and after the Myth Realm experts from Lingyun Hall, Kunlun sect, and the 10 Holy Lands had eliminated their opponents, they also followed suit and helped the experts from other forces to eliminate their opponents. This formed a chain reaction. After the battle lasted for more than 2 hours, Yi Tianzong, Yi Haoran, and the others alone had eliminated more than 3,000 Myth Realm experts from Yuanling World. In total, more than 20,000 Myth Realm experts from Yuanling World were eliminated. Originally, there were more than 9,600 Myth Realm experts at 3rd Sky and 4th Sky. Now, there were less than 2,500 people left. The cruel reality finally made the Myth Realm experts from Yuanling World recognize their situation. The situation was hopeless, and they no longer had any chance of winning. Having lost their fighting spirit, the Myth Realm experts from Yuanling World admitted defeat to the opponents in front of them. But without Yi Tianzong's order, the Myth Realm experts from the Central Plains and the Southern Wasteland ignored them and continued to mercilessly kill the people from Yuanling World. It was not until more than 30,000 Myth Realm experts were killed that the Myth Realm experts from the Central Plains and the Southern Wasteland stopped killing the experts from Yuanling World under Yi Tianzong's order. At this time, the number of Myth Realm experts from Yuanling World was less than 60,000. Yi Tianzong looked at the trembling Myth Realm experts from Yuanling World in front of him and said with a cold expression, "Do you know? Before the war started, I wanted to leave some leeway. I only planned to kill half of the Myth Realm experts from Yuanling World who were above 3rd Sky. Especially your world's ancestor of myriad arts, ancestor of Star Palace, and ancestor of divination. They are extremely talented and will be a great help in the future. I didn't want to kill them at all. Otherwise, I could have killed them 3 years ago. It's a pity that they've been high and mighty for too long. Their desire to control is too strong, and their ambition is too great. You actually dared to dream of destroying me and completely conquering our world. It's because of these people that I changed my decision. I must teach you a lesson. I won't stop until I've destroyed half of your strength. Humph, the reason why you've ended up like this is because your world's top experts who died were too ambitious. Now, let me ask you, will you submit to my spirit world and respect the Central Plains in the future?" After Yi Tianzong finished speaking, he looked at the people from Yuanling World indifferently, as if he didn't care whether they agreed or not. But the people from Yuanling World, who had no choice in fighting spirit, finally admitted defeat to Yi Tianzong and the others under the leadership of less than 300 Myth Realm experts at 4th Sky. They swore to the will of heaven and earth that they would respect the Central Plains in the future. Up to this point, in just a short 10 hours, the victor of the battle in Myth Realm was decided. The outcome of the Myth Realm battle also determined the outcome of the battle below Myth Realm. At the same time, it also meant that the battle that concerned the fate of the creatures in the two worlds ended with the victory of Spirit World. When the Myth Realm battle had just ended, in the battlefield below Myth Realm, the Allied forces formed by the Central Plains and the Southern Wasteland were still fighting to the death with Yuanling World. But overall, although the Allied forces of the Central Plains and the Southern Wasteland were not as numerous as Yuanling World, they had more advantages on the battlefield. The most important thing was that the war weapons of the major forces of the Central Plains and the Southern Wasteland played a very big role in the battle. Yuanling World also had various refining methods and formations to deal with the explosive flame beads and various offensive formations of the Spirit World. But there was no good way to deal with these powerful and flexible war weapons, especially the War Fortress and Sky Patrol battleships of the Hao Ranjin sect. They were simply invincible in the army of Yuanling World. Every time they launched an attack, they would destroy a large number of people from Yuanling World. But the people from Yuanling World could not break the defense of the War Fortress and Sky Patrol battleships at all. They could only watch the War Fortress and Sky Patrol battleships kill their fellow sect members and companions with resentment and helplessness. Soon, the Myth Realm experts, who had won and lost, returned from the ninth sky. Looking at the battlefield that was still fighting, the myth realm experts of the spirit world and Yuan Ling world released their powerful aura, intimidating everyone and ordering a ceasefire. Under the orders of their respective myth realm experts, the people from the spirit world and Yuan Ling world gradually retreated to their respective camps and positions. Then, Yi Tianzong represented the spirit world as the winner and announced that the people from Yuan Ling world were allowed to survive in the spirit world. He also explained the rules that they needed to follow in the future. Chapter 271. Time passed quickly, and it was time for the Central Plains Prodigy Competition, which was held once every 5 years. All the third-rate and above forces from the Central Plains gathered in Prodigy City. The heavens-chosen competition of the Central Plains was now divided into more detailed divisions. The heavens-chosen competition was divided into 3 levels: Martial Marquis, Martial King, and Martial Supreme. Each level of competition had its own rules and conditions. This way, all the third-rate and above forces in the Central Plains were qualified to participate. There were still 2 days before the start of the Prodigy competition. At this time, Prodigy City was very lively. In a restaurant with a flourishing business, guests from all over the world were chatting freely with familiar people. They were not as vigilant and worried as they usually were when they were outside. Everyone was very relaxed. This was because the restaurant they were in belonged to the Hao Ranjin sect, and the Hao Ranjin sect was the most powerful super overlord in the Central Plains, the southern wilderness, and the northern border. Not only was their overall strength the best in the 3 regions, but they also had invincible experts, battle fortresses, and sky patrol battleships. There was a sky patrol battleship of the Hao Ranjin sect in Prodigy City. Which force dared to cause trouble in the Hao Ranjin sect's property? That was purely a case of brain damage that couldn't be any worse. At this time, on the top floor of the restaurant, there were 2 sacred landlords from the southern wilderness chatting peacefully. One of the sacred lords of the spirit desolate sacred land said to the other sacred lord of the cloud sky sacred land, "Since young Master Haoran led us to defeat the people of Yuan Ling world in the battle of the northern border 50 years ago, both the Central Plains and the southern wilderness have had a great increase in fortune. Talented geniuses with outstanding aptitude are emerging one after another. Even martial sages like us can clearly feel the increase in our cultivation speed. If the southern wilderness is like this, then the Central Plains, which was the main force, must have obtained even more fortune. Especially the Hao Ranjin sect. It's hard to imagine how powerful the Hao Ranjin sect has become after 50 years. Cloud Sky Sacred Leader said, "We don't need to worry about this. The ones who should be worried are the factions in the Central Plains. In any case, Hao Ranjin sect had Yi Shaozong and his 2 wives. Who could threaten the Hao Ranjin sect? Even a 4th sky of myth realm expert was nothing more than an ant in their eyes. If the Hao Ranjin sect wanted to dominate the world, who could stop them? Compared to those groundless worries, I wanted to know how many disciples the Hao Ranjin sect would send to participate in the Tianjiao competition, and what results they would achieve. Then, he would see if he could find some rogue cultivators with no background to recruit. Didn't you come here with the same intention?" The Spirit Desolate Holy Lord said, "That's right, the Central Plains is an outstanding land spirit. With the recovery of the heavens and earth, countless heavenly materials and earthly treasures have been born, and only a few have been discovered. There would always be some lucky people who would obtain powerful treasures and soar into the sky from then on. Although our southern wasteland is also developing rapidly, it is still far from the Central Plains. We don't dare to hope for those outstanding rogue cultivators, but those in the middle are also good choices for us. But then again, I don't know how the Hao Ranjin sect cultivates its disciples. Every time I watch the Tianjiao competition, I always feel that the disciples of the Hao Ranjin sect are simply bullying others. Their strength is unreasonable. If it weren't for the Hao Ranzhen sect gradually reducing the number of disciples participating in the Tianjiao competition over the years, the geniuses of the major factions would have been beaten to death. Even so, the top 30 of each Tianjiao competition has always been the world of the Hao Ranzhen sect. It is said that the disciples of the Hao Oren who obtained the top 100 in the Tianjiao competition are only at the second level of existence in the Hao Ranzhen sect. I wonder if this is true? After the cloud sky Holy Lord heard the words of the Spirit, desolate Holy Lord, the corner of his mouth twitched. He didn't know how to respond. In the world, who didn't know that the disciples of the Hao Ranzhen sect were the strongest? Who didn't want to know how the Hao Ranzhen sect cultivated their disciples? But when he thought of the strength of the Hao Ranzhen sect, it was better to wash up and sleep. No matter what happened in Tianjiao City, it had no effect on Yi Tianzong, who was far away on Tiangang Peak. Ever since he completely defeated the people of Yuanling World 50 years ago, Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu had been quietly staying on Tiangang Peak. Most of the time, they were in the immortal mansion, comprehending the laws of heaven and earth. They sat and watched the world surge, and the geniuses came out one after another. In the past 50 years, because of the resolution of the outer space crisis, the will of heaven and earth increased its control over the breakthrough of the myth realm expert. Wu Xing's success rate of breaking through to the myth realm was greatly reduced. And in the Battle of Yuanling World, Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, Shen Yu, and the people of Hao Ranzhen sect contributed the most. The number of myth realm experts only increased by 100 people. Although the number of myth realm experts didn't increase by much, all the myth realm experts' speed of comprehending the laws of heaven and earth was much faster than usual in the first 20 years. Basically, they all broke through a small realm. This speed was already very fast because the myth realm experts had a long life. Every time they broke through a small realm, under normal circumstances, it would take hundreds of years. Previously, in order to deal with the foreign enemies, the will of heaven and earth in the spirit profound world had to consume its origin to manifest the laws of heaven and earth to increase the strength of the central plains and the southern wasteland. But after the crisis was resolved, it naturally wouldn't waste so much of its origin. Being able to break through a small realm in 20 years was all because of the contributions made in the World War and the blessings of heaven and earth. On this day, Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu once again appeared at the top of Tiangang Peak and stood side by side. Looking at the endless sea of clouds in the distance, Yi Tianzong said softly, "Since devouring the broken Yuanling world, the origin of heaven and earth has increased a lot, and the will of heaven and earth has become more mysterious and unpredictable. Now that the accumulation of the whole world is enough, it's time to break the next layer of the seal. I can already faintly feel that a powerful and supreme force is gradually increasing in the depths of the earth. The suppressed demon emperor is also gradually recovering these years. I must advance to the divine king realm before it recovers to the great emperor realm and destroy it in advance. This is a test for me to be promoted to an intermediate disciple. I have no room for retreat." After Ling Xinyue and Shen Yu heard Yi Tianzong's words, they said with a firm expression, "No matter what you do, we will support you. When the time comes, we will face it with you." When Yi Tianzong heard the two peerless goddesses pouring out their hearts, he smiled knowingly and hugged them tightly. After coming down from the top of Tiangang Peak, Yi Tianzong announced to the higher-ups of Hao Ranzhen sect that they would break the next layer of the seal of heaven and earth 5 years later. Then Lingyun Hall, Kunlun sect, and the 10 Holy Lands also received the message from Hao Ranzhen sect one after another, and then arranged to confirm the quota of people going to Hao Ranzhen sect 5 years later. 5 years passed as usual. The master of Lingyun Hall, the master of Kunlun sect, and the 10 holy lords brought their respective forces to Haoran City one after another. 3 days later, in a place closer to Tiangang Peak outside Haoran City, the people of Hao Ranzhen sect, Lingyun Hall, Kunlun sect, and the 10 holy lands gathered here. After everything was ready, Yi Tianzong looked up at the sky with a solemn expression, and then his whole body emitted a dazzling golden light. After 2 breaths of time, the aura that was gradually rising to the peak suddenly changed. The golden light outside his body suddenly expanded, and the vast divine spirit in his body surged violently. Suddenly, he broke through the bottleneck and broke through to another world, achieving a breakthrough from the 4th sky of Myth Realm to the 5th sky of Myth Realm. To break through from the 4th sky of Myth Realm to the 5th sky of Myth Realm, one needed to go through 27 heavenly thunder tribulations. Moreover, the power of the last heavenly thunder tribulations was the sum of the power of the previous 26 heavenly thunders. In addition, the power of the heavenly thunder tribulations had to be forcefully broken through by breaking through the limits of heaven and earth, so the power of the heavenly thunder tribulations was at least doubled. Even with Yi Tianzong's strength, he had to take it seriously. Chapter 272. After enduring the test of the lightning tribulation and the net of laws, Yi Tianzong had just recovered 50% of his strength when he welcomed the tribulation of lightning that broke the seal of heaven and earth. Starting from the myth realm, every time he broke a layer of the seal of heaven and earth, he would have to go through 9 lightning tribulations as punishment. After Yi Tianzong was struck by 9 lightning tribulations, he went through the tribulation of thousands of black shadows with the people of Hao Ranjin sect, Lingyun Hall, Kunlun sect, and the 10 great holy lands. In the end, after an intense battle with the black humanoid creatures formed by the sealing chains for a day and a night, Yi Tianzong finally eliminated his opponent, and the profound spirit world began to expand. This time, the expansion of heaven and earth was more than 100 times, and it would take at least 15 years. After Yi Tianzong eliminated his opponent, he returned to Tiangangpi. After giving some instructions, he entered the immortal mansion with Ling Xinyue and Shen Yu. During the expansion of heaven and earth, as well as the first 20 years after the expansion, it was the best time for all myth realm experts to increase their strength. Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu were in the immortal mansion. With the help of 4 times the time of the outside world and the superior cultivation environment, they comprehended the laws of heaven and earth with all their strength. A naturally formed world was made up of 3,000 laws of heaven and earth. Although the laws in the world varied in strength, there would definitely not be a lack of any of the 3,000 laws. And if a world wanted to be promoted, then it had to balance the 3,000 laws of heaven and earth. For example, if a medium-class world wanted to be promoted to a greater world, then the 3,000 mysteries of the laws of heaven and earth of the medium-class world must all reach 70% or more of the complete laws. At the peak of the myth era, the profound spirit world had already reached the peak of the medium-class world level. Out of the 3,000 laws of heaven and earth, more than 2,000 mysteries of the laws of heaven and earth had reached 70%. However, some of the laws of heaven and earth were extremely powerful and unpredictable, and were extremely important to the heavens and earth. Once a cultivator comprehended them to a certain extent, they would have the ability to steal the authority of the heavens and earth, creating a huge threat to the heavens and earth. Therefore, in the profound spirit world, there were only 365 laws that could be comprehended to 70% by cultivators. Yi Tianzong had been reincarnated many times, gaining insights into the 3,000 heaven and earth laws. It was just that the amount of insight he gained into each law varied. From the legacy in the immortal mansion, he learned that if he wanted to break through the myth realm in the future and walk further in the boundless Tao realm, he would have to completely comprehend more of the laws of the world. As for Yi Tianzong, he wasn't greedy enough to attempt to completely comprehend the 3,000 laws of heaven and earth. Instead, he focused on comprehending the 13 laws of heaven and earth, 5 elements: lightning, time, space, light and darkness, yin and yang, creation, destruction, samsara, life and death, karma, soul and void. However, because of his own experience, He had the deepest understanding of the five elements: time, space, light and darkness, and yin and yang laws. The difficulty of comprehending the laws of heaven and earth in the boundless world was far greater than in the medium-class world. Therefore, every time the profound spirit world expanded, it was a very rare opportunity for Yi Tianzong. Furthermore, the immortal mansion could completely engrave all of the laws of heaven and earth in the profound spirit world. Yi Tianzong's comprehension would not be affected by the will of the heavens and earth. The expansion of the profound spirit world lasted for 18 years before it was completed. 18 years in the outside world was 72 years in the immortal mansion. In more than 70 years, Yi Tianzong had finally comprehended 70% of the laws of space and 70% of the laws of time. However, it would still take a long time for him to reach 70% of the laws of heaven and earth. Other than the five elements, which had long been comprehended to more than 70%, the laws of lightning, light and darkness, yin and yang, creation, destruction, samsara, life and death, karma, soul, and void had all been comprehended to more than 60% after so many years of comprehension. Among them, the laws of light and darkness, the laws of yin and yang, and the laws of thunder had all been comprehended to around 68%. The laws of samsara, the laws of soul, and the laws of void had all been comprehended to around 61%. Now that the expansion of the heavens and earth was complete, it was time to receive the feedback of the heavens and earth. Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu walked out of the immortal mansion and arrived at the peak of the heavenly Dipper Peak. Not long after, the five-colored Milky Way from the ninth heaven poured down, turning into countless branches and instilling into everyone who had participated in breaking the seal of the heavens and earth. The vast and pure origin energy of the heavens and earth was instilled into Yi Tianzong's body, causing Yi Tianzong's cultivation, which was originally at the middle stage of the fifth sky of Myth Realm, to soar. In less than an hour, he had reached the peak of the fifth sky of Myth Realm. At this time, the origin energy that the heavens and earth had given back to Yi Tianzong had not even consumed 1/10 of it. Yi Tianzong did not continue to break through his cultivation. Instead, he immediately began the seventh refining of the 9 refining nirvana. Practicing the seventh refining of the 9 refining nirvana originally required a lot of heaven and earth treasures and resources. However, as long as it was a heaven and earth treasure, the source of energy needed to grow was none other than the origin energy of the heavens and earth. The function of those heaven and earth treasures was nothing more than to strengthen one of the functions of the origin energy of the heavens and earth. Therefore, with the vast and boundless origin energy of the heavens and earth, Yi Tianzong did not need any heaven and earth treasures at all. With the vast origin energy of the heavens and earth, and the 300,000 origin crystals that he had taken out, Yi Tianzong only spent 3 months to successfully complete the seventh refining of the 9 refining of the nirvana. When Yi Tianzong completed the seventh refining of the nirvana, Ling Xinyue and Shen Yu had also completed the seventh refining of the 9 refining of the true God realm with the help of the origin energy feedback. During the 18 years of the expansion of the heavens and earth, Ling Xinyue and Shen Yu had already broken through to the fifth sky of Myth Realm. Moreover, because of Yi Tianzong's unlimited supply of origin crystals, their cultivation had reached the peak of the middle stage of the fifth sky of Myth Realm. This time, with the help of the origin energy feedback from the heavens and earth, Ling Xinyue and Shen Yu did not use it to increase their cultivation. Instead, they used it to cultivate the seventh refining of the true God realm. With the help of 100,000 origin crystals, not only did Ling Xinyue and Shen Yu complete the seventh refining of the true God realm, but their cultivation had also reached the late stage of the fifth sky of Myth Realm. After digesting the origin energy feedback from the heavens and earth, Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu smiled knowingly. Then, after patrolling the Hao Ran Zhen sect for 3 days, they once again entered the immortal mansion to comprehend the laws of the heavens and earth. The 20 years after the expansion of the heavens and earth was completed was also the easiest time to comprehend the laws of the heavens and earth. Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu did not waste any time. They stayed in the immortal mansion for 80 years. In the end, their comprehension of the laws of the heavens and earth improved. Ling Xinyue and Shen Yu had both comprehended more than 60% of the laws of the heavens and earth that they focused on comprehending. Yi Tianzong had also completely comprehended the laws of time to 70%. 20 years had passed in the outside world, and the laws of the heavens and earth had disappeared, becoming difficult to comprehend again. Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu had also come out of seclusion. At this time, in the nearly 40 years since the expansion of the Hao Ranjin sect, more than 200 wuxing had broken through to the myth realm. There were 65 experts at the fourth heaven of the myth realm, and 270 experts at the third heaven of the myth realm. The total number of myth realm experts had reached 2,100. In terms of the number of myth realm experts, the Hao Ranjin sect was equivalent to the Taishan Holy Land, True Yen Holy Land, and Heavenly Snow Holy Land combined. At this stage, there was nothing for Yi Tianzong to worry about in the Hao Ranjin sect. After spending a year guiding the myth realm experts of the Hao Ranjin sect and explaining martial arts cultivation to the disciples of the Hao Ranjin sect, Yi Tianzong once again announced to the public that he was going into seclusion. In the immortal mansion, Yi Tianzong reluctantly said goodbye to Ling Xinyue and Shen Yu. He left 6 million origin crystals for them to use for cultivation, and then once again passed through the colorful barrier and entered the Black Heaven sect in the greater thousand world of the human race. Once again returning to the Black Heaven sect, Yi Tianzong familiarized himself with the environment, then closed the protective formation and came out of seclusion. As soon as he came out of seclusion, Yi Tianzong directly flew to the Black Heaven sect's place of tribulation. Yi Tianzong was a core disciple who was in the limelight and was highly praised by the higher-ups of the sect. His every move would be watched by many people. In any case, no one in the Black Heaven sect dared to attack him. Yi Tianzong smoothly passed the test of the heavenly thunder tribulation and the net of laws as if there was no one around. Under everyone's shocked gazes, his cultivation finally stabilized at the peak of the fifth heaven of the myth realm. On the seventh day after breaking through to the fifth heaven of the myth realm, Yi Tianzong went to the sect's examination hall and was officially promoted to a true disciple of the Black Heaven sect. He became one of the higher-ups of the Black Heaven sect and had the official qualification to compete for the higher-ups of the sect. After being promoted to a true disciple, Yi Tianzong began to challenge again. Chapter 273. After being promoted to a core disciple, Yi Tianzong had fought his way through the core disciple ranking list, and this time he was promoted to a true disciple. There was no exception. There were a total of 2,000 true disciples in the Mysterious Sky sect, and all of them were at the fifth and sixth layer of the myth realm. However, only 100 people could enter the true disciple ranking list, and all of them were at the middle stage of the sixth layer of the myth realm. Yi Tianzong directly started to challenge the 100th disciple of the true disciple ranking list. The true disciple who was challenged by Yi Tianzong was called Lu Sini. After receiving Yi Tianzong's challenge, Lu Sini did not evade. Although he knew that he was probably not a match for Yi Tianzong, but he still used all of his strength to fight with Yi Tianzong. Yi Tianzong had no enmity with Lu Sini, and he had a good impression of Lu Sini, who had a good temperament and perseverance. After restraining his strength, Yi Tianzong easily defeated Lu Sini after fighting for 20 moves, but did not cause any injury to Lu Sini. After communicating with Lu Sini for a while, Yi Tianzong continued to challenge. This time, Yi Tianzong did not jump to challenge the true disciple ranking list, but challenged from low to high, one by one. For 20 days, Yi Tianzong challenged 5 people every day and encountered the true disciples who had failed to recruit him and had repeatedly suppressed and plotted against him. Yi Tianzong did not show mercy, and the lightest injury was serious injury. And for true disciple Wang He, who had already formed a deadly feud with Yi Tianzong directly went to the life and death arena with him. In the life and death arena, Yi Tianzong did not show any mercy, and simply did not talk nonsense with Wang He. Yi Tianzong used his full strength right from the start. His domineering and ferocious world-dominating fist came one punch after another. It was as if the immemorial divine mountains were pressing down one after another. The rapid and ferocious attacks made Wang He unable to shout out his surrender before he was blasted into ashes by Yi Tianzong's fist. He was completely eliminated. The higher-ups of the Black Sky sect didn't say anything about Yi Tianzong killing Wang He. After all, it was Wang He who first provoked Yi Tianzong. After failing to recruit Yi Tianzong, Wang He wantonly suppressed and plotted against Yi Tianzong. The two sides had formed a deadly feud that couldn't be resolved. Therefore, one side had to die. No one could say anything about Yi Tianzong seeking revenge in the life and death arena. What's more, Yi Tianzong's contributions to the sect and his importance to the sect were far from what Wang He could compare to. The higher-ups of the Black Sky sect would not mindlessly use the sect's overall situation as a reason to forcefully intervene in the mediation of this kind of life and death feud. To be able to cultivate to the Divine King realm, who didn't go through hundreds of thousands of years and kill countless enemies to survive until now. Could a life and death feud between cultivators be resolved simply because of the sect's rules? What a joke! Once a life and death feud was formed between cultivators, it would definitely not end until one of them was dead. Otherwise, it would definitely affect one's own cultivation path. As long as the higher-ups of a sect were not idiots, they wouldn't forcefully intervene in this kind of life and death feud. This was because the slightest mistake would increase one's enemies and trouble. For a sect that truly developed in an orderly manner and was full of potential, there might be competition among the higher-ups of the sect. However, there definitely wouldn't be hidden dangers like a life and death feud. Once such a situation occurred, they would only think about how to kill the other party all day long. If the internal strife was so intense, who would have the mind to develop the sect? Since the establishment of the Black Sky sect, the higher-ups of the sect had been rotated 6 times. However, there had never been a life and death feud between the two of them. Any great feud would be resolved directly before they became the higher-ups of the sect. Even if resolving this kind of feud required the sacrifice of an outstanding disciple, the higher-ups of the Black Sky sect would not hesitate. For the same reason, Yi Tianzong also had the same rule in the Hao Ranjun sect in the profound spirit world. 20 days later, after Yi Tianzong shattered the oncoming attack with his sword and severely injured his opponent, he finally defeated everyone on the true disciple ranking. At the peak of the 5th heaven of the mythical realm, he became the number 1 true disciple of the Black Sky sect. Moreover, he had also subdued the last 3 true disciples on the true disciple ranking. Lu Xini, O Yueming, and Yun Qinglin. These 3 true disciples were actually not inferior to the top 20 true disciples in terms of aptitude, temperament, and perseverance. The reason why their cultivation stopped at the middle stage of the 6th heaven of the mythical realm was that the 3 of them had no background in the Black Sky sect. They had to rely on themselves for all the resources and contributions. In order to reduce the threat to themselves, the other true disciples with backgrounds had joined forces to suppress the 3 of them. It was also thanks to the rules of the Black Sky sect that the forces behind the other true disciples did not dare to act rashly. They could only suppress them secretly and not openly. This was why Lu Xini, O Yueming, and Yun Qinglin could survive until now. As for Yi Tianzong, Lu Xini, O Yueming, and Yun Qinglin had long heard of him after he became a core disciple. After Yi Tianzong defeated the core disciple ranking, laid down the 1,000-elephant formation, and established the Haoran faction, the 3 of them paid more attention to Yi Tianzong. In particular, the purpose of the Haoran faction was very much in line with their thoughts. They had long wanted to join the Haoran faction. However, because Yi Tianzong was only a core disciple, Lu Xinyi, Ou Yueming, and Yun Chenglin could not bring themselves to join the Haoran faction as true disciples. Now that Yi Tianzong had been promoted to a true disciple and even became the #1 true disciple, the three of them immediately joined the Haoran faction after Yi Tianzong expressed his intention to recruit them. After becoming the #1 true disciple, Yi Tianzong was received by the Black Sky sect's upper echelons. The Black Sky sect had 7 main institutions: the Scripture Library, the Thousand Weapons Hall, the Assessment Hall, the Mission Hall, the Enforcement Hall, the Alchemy Hall, and the Mystic Formation Hall. Among them, the Mystic Formation Hall only existed in name due to the previous Hall Master's betrayal. Currently, the upper echelons of the sect were the Black Sky Sect Master, the Scripture Library Hall Master, the Thousand Weapons Hall Master, the Assessment Hall Master, the Mission Hall Master, the Enforcement Hall Master, and the Alchemy Hall Master. Of course, the Black Sky Sect did not only have these 7 divine kings. Other than the Black Sky Sect Master, Lin Xiantian, who was at the peak of the Divine King realm and had 4 divine kings under him, the Scripture Library Hall, the Thousand Weapons Hall Master, the Assessment Hall Master, the Enforcement Hall Master, and the Alchemy Hall Master were all at the late stage of the Divine King realm. Each of them had 2 Divine King realm elders under them. For example, the Enforcement Elder that Yi Tianzong had encountered in the world battlefield was under the command of the Enforcement Hall Master. In the Black Sky Great Hall, Yi Tianzong bowed to the upper echelons of the Black Sky sect one by one. After bowing, Yi Tianzong received the unanimous praise of the upper echelons of the Black Sky sect. They all knew about Yi Tianzong's contributions to the sect. As for Yi Tianzong's character, they only needed to look at the Haoran faction that he had established to know about it. Coupled with the fact that Yi Tianzong was a righteous person to begin with, they had long regarded Yi Tianzong as the next generation of upper echelons to nurture. After the Black Sky sect master, Lin Xiantian, praised Yi Tianzong one last time, Yi Tianzong struck while the iron was hot and directly contributed the construction method of the creation profound pool to the upper echelons of the Black Sky sect. Moreover, he made it clear that the creation profound pool was an upgrade of the creation spirit pool. It was also a secret method that he had obtained from an expert's inheritance that could increase one's aptitude and potential. However, the creation profound pool had not been completely created. It was only a half-finished product. After Yi Tianzong obtained the inheritance, he studied the creation spirit pool thoroughly. Then, he combined his own understanding and tried countless times before he finally perfected the creation profound pool. The upper echelons of the Black Sky sect knew about the effects of the creation spirit pool. It could be said that it could increase the standard of the sect's disciples by a large margin. Now that there was an upgrade of the creation spirit pool, the upper echelons of the Black Sky sect immediately checked the jade slip that Yi Tianzong had provided. Godly kings had condensed the origin of the laws of heaven and earth. Their souls were incomparably powerful. With a single thought, they could evolve countless thoughts and deduce all things. In just a moment, all the upper echelons of the Black Sky sect confirmed that the effects of the creation profound pool were indeed 2 times stronger than the creation spirit pool. This would undoubtedly make the Black Sky sect's disciples below the myth realm stronger. It was of great significance to the future of the sect. Therefore, they looked at Yi Tianzong with even more admiration and satisfaction. Chapter 274. After communicating with their souls, Sect Master Lin Xiantian said to Yi Tianzong, "As you said, the black creation pool you offered is indeed more effective than the creation pool. It's rare that you still want to contribute to the sect while cultivating. How about this? You can build your own black creation pool in the future, but it can only be used to nurture the sect's disciples and your descendants. Do you have any objections?" Yi Tianzong said respectfully, "Thank you, Sect Master. I don't have any objections." Lin Xiantian looked at Yi Tianzong with satisfaction and said, "Well, not bad. If that's the case, you can go back if there's nothing else." Yi Tianzong replied respectfully, "Yes, sect master. Hall masters. I'll take my leave." Then Yi Tianzong left the mysterious heaven hall and returned to Howren Peak. After Yi Tianzong returned to Howren Peak, he first met with the disciples on Howren Peak. Then, he spent a year explaining in detail to the disciples on Howren Peak from the Wu King realm to the fifth heavenly layer of myth. He also recorded it with a shadow recording stone. After answering some of the disciples' questions on cultivation, Yi Tianzong distributed some cultivation resources and medicinal pills and announced that he would go into seclusion again. This time, Yi Tianzong went into seclusion to break through to the sixth heavenly layer of myth. In his previous life, Yi Tianzong was at the peak of the sixth heavenly layer of myth. He was only one step away from the divine king realm. Now that Yi Tianzong had broken through to the sixth heavenly layer of myth again, it was a walk in the park. In the 10th year after Yi Tianzong went into seclusion, he broke through to the sixth heavenly layer of myth. Under the shocked and incredulous gazes of the true disciples of the mysterious heaven sect, Yi Tianzong successfully passed through the 27 heavenly thunder tribulations and the net of law, successfully breaking through to the sixth heavenly layer of myth. How did he break through to the sixth heaven of mythological realm so quickly? This was the question in the hearts of all the true disciples of the Black Heaven sect. Considering the talent and strength Yi Tianzong had displayed, everyone in the profound heaven sect believed that Yi Tianzong would reach the sixth layer of godmyth sooner or later. However, no one had expected that in just 10 years, Yi Tianzong had broken through to the sixth layer. Even if Yi Tianzong had enough resources to make breakthroughs in his divine body, divine origin, and divine soul, how could it be so easy to comprehend the laws of heaven and earth? Or could it be that Yi Tianzong had already comprehended more than 60% of the laws of heaven and earth? None of the Black Heaven sect's true disciples could believe that Yi Tianzong had actually comprehended a sufficient level of the laws of heaven and earth in such a short period of time. However, this was the truth, and they could only accept it no matter what. Subsequently, everyone felt that Yi Tianzong was unfathomable. After breaking through to the sixth heaven of mythological realm, Yi Tianzong did not delay for long. After receiving some disciples who had come to congratulate him on his breakthrough, Yi Tianzong announced that he would go into seclusion again. His comprehension of the laws of heaven and earth had long reached a sufficient level. His divine soul had also cultivated the 9 refinements of nirvana. In addition, after breaking the seal of heaven and earth several times and destroying the black humanoid creature, Yi Tianzong's divine soul was not only very condensed and tough, but it had also surpassed the scope of the sixth heaven of mythological realm. It had reached a level that was not weaker than the early divine king realm's divine soul. As for the improvement of his divine body and divine origin, Yi Tianzong had a large number of divine body pills, divine origin pills, and more than 15 million origin crystals. After spending 30 years and repeatedly consolidating his foundation, Yi Tianzong still reached the peak of the sixth heaven of mythological realm. After hundreds of years, Yi Tianzong had once again returned to his peak state. Compared to his previous life, Yi Tianzong in this life was much stronger and more unpredictable. After Yi Tianzong came out of seclusion, he first learned about the recent situation of Howren Peak. After answering some questions that some disciples on Howren Peak encountered during their cultivation, he also distributed some cultivation resources and medicinal pills. After that, he went to the Mystic Heaven Great Hall and requested an audience with the sect leader of the Mystic Heaven sect, Lin Xiantian. After meeting with Lin Xiantian, Yi Tianzong explained his intention. He wanted to perfect the 1,000-elephant formation and increase the range of the formations test to the sixth heaven of mythological realm. The importance of the 1,000-elephant formation to the Black Heaven sect was self-evident. Naturally, Lin Xiantian could not ask for more. With a wave of his hand, he sent someone to the sect's treasury to take out all the materials needed to perfect the 1,000-elephant formation and gave them to Yi Tianzong. After encouraging Yi Tianzong left the sect's great hall and returned to Haoran Peak. He gathered all the disciples on Haoran Peak who had learned about formations and went to the Black Heaven sect's 1,000-elephant formation. The news that Yi Tianzong wanted to perfect the 1,000-elephant formation spread throughout the Black Heaven sect within a day. After spending half a month, Yi Tianzong led some disciples of the Black Heaven sect and finally increased the range of the 1,000-elephant formations test to the 6th heaven of mythological realm. After the 1,000-elephant formation was perfected, Yi Tianzong personally walked through the 1,000-elephant formation. After confirming that there were no problems, he publicly announced that all disciples of the Black Heaven sect were welcome to enter the 1,000-elephant formation. In the next 3 months, all the true disciples of the 5th heaven and 6th heaven of mythological realm of the Black Heaven sect entered the 1,000-elephant formation voluntarily or under the instructions of the higher-ups of the Black Heaven sect. However, the result was a big blow to the true disciples and higher-ups of the Black Heaven sect. After Yi Tianzong perfected the 1,000-elephant formation, not only did it test one's combat strength, divine body, divine vitality, and soul, but it also tested one's mental state. All the cultivators who entered the formation would experience the illusory mortal world again and again when they went through the mental state test. According to the mental state cultivation method created by Yi Tianzong, among the spiritual movement realm, heart spring realm, heart lake realm, and heart sea realm, if a powerhouse of the 6th heaven of mythological realm wanted to reach the sovereign level determined by the 1,000-elephant formation, not only did they need to reach the standard of combat strength, divine body, divine vitality, and soul, but their mental state cultivation also needed to reach the level of the initial heart sea realm. However, in order to avoid standing out, Yi Tianzong did not directly announce the mental cultivation realm he created. Instead, he used the number of times the challenger experienced the illusory mortal world to show the level of their mental state. Once and twice corresponded to the ordinary level 1 and level 2, 3 and 4 times corresponded to the elite level 1 and elite level 2, and so on. 9 and 10 times corresponded to the sovereign level 1 and sovereign level 2. Although the mental state test method was a bit rough, for all the disciples and higher-ups of the Black Heaven sect, this was already a precedent. There was a more clear and intuitive way to distinguish the level of mental state. After all the disciples of the Black Heaven sect who entered the formation and completed the challenge, the 1,000-elephant formation would show the challenger's divine body, soul, divine vitality, and mental state. Finally, it would judge and explain the specific level of the challenger. However, what disappointed the higher-ups of the Black Heaven sect was that none of the true disciples who entered the 1,000-elephant formation could reach the level of a prodigy. There were less than 30 true disciples who reached the level of a prodigy. Their combat strength only reached the standard, but their mental state did not pass at all. They did not even pass the illusory mortal world 4 times. As for those who passed the mental state, their combat strength did not reach the standard. The higher-ups of the Black Heaven sect did not believe it and directly sent an elder of the early stage Divine King to seal his cultivation and enter the 1,000-elephant formation to challenge. In the end, he had the combat strength of a 2nd-level sovereign and the mental state of a 1st-level sovereign. Then, they let Yi Tianzong enter the 1,000-elephant formation to challenge. In the end, he had the combat strength of a 2nd-level sovereign and the mental state of a 2nd-level sovereign. Seeing the result, the early-stage Divine King Elder was not convinced and sealed his cultivation at the peak of the 6th heavenly layer of myth. Under the witness of the higher-ups of the Black Heaven sect, he fought with Yi Tianzong. The battle could be said to be evenly matched. Yi Tianzong and the early-stage Divine King Elder fought fiercely. Under normal circumstances, The strength of an early-stage divine king was far beyond that of an ordinary peak of the sixth heavenly layer of myth. In fact, the early-stage divine king elder, who sealed his cultivation, had reached the level of a fifth-level sovereign. However, the 1,000 elephant formations test range was only a second-level sovereign. Although Yi Tianzong could defeat the early-stage divine king elder with his cultivation sealed if he went all out, Yi Tianzong kept himself on par with the early-stage divine king elder in order to preserve more trump cards and leeway for himself. The two sides fought fiercely and neither could do anything to the other. After fighting for a day and a night, the higher-ups of the Black Heavens sect ordered the battle to end in a draw. This result completely shocked the higher-ups and disciples of the Black Heavens sect. They no longer doubted the accuracy of the 1,000 elephant formations test result. After making the decision to increase the training of the Black Heavens sect's disciples, the higher-ups of the Black Heavens sect liked Yi Tianzong more and more. They did not expect Yi Tianzong to be so powerful. This made the higher-ups of the Black Heavens sect have even higher expectations of Yi Tianzong. Chapter 275. In front of all the disciples of the Heavenly Profound sect, Yi Tianzong had fought to a draw with an early God King elder who had his cultivation sealed for an entire day and night. He had truly stolen the limelight. No one among the true disciples could threaten Yi Tianzong's status anymore. Even if the early God King elder sealed his cultivation, he would only be able to use less energy. He would be no different from an ordinary early God King in all other aspects. The fact that Yi Tianzong could fight to a draw with the sealed early God King elder meant that Yi Tianzong had 100% chance of becoming a God King. After the battle, Yi Tianzong returned to Howren Peak. However, due to Yi Tianzong's stunning performance, the number of Profound Heaven sect disciples who applied to join Howren's faction increased drastically. In just 3 months, the number of Profound Heaven sect disciples in Howren's faction had tripled, reaching over 30,000 people. There were outer disciples, inner disciples, core disciples, and direct disciples. Yi Tianzong rejoiced over the increase in the strength and influence of Howren's faction. He also recorded the video of him explaining the way of cultivation to the disciples of Howren Peak and added it to the list of items that could be exchanged for in Howren's faction. All the disciples of Howren's Peak could use their contribution points to exchange for the video of Yi Tianzong explaining the way of cultivation. In terms of understanding of the way of cultivation, who could compare to Yi Tianzong, who had reincarnated multiple times and obtained the legacy of the immortal mansion aside from God Kings and above? All the disciples of the Profound Heaven sect wanted to become an existence like Yi Tianzong. Even if they could not become as powerful as Yi Tianzong, becoming a prodigy was already enough. Therefore, in Howren's camp, the video of Yi Tianzong explaining the way of cultivation was very popular. With Yi Tianzong's comprehensive and detailed explanation, all the disciples in Howren's camp who had exchanged for shadow recording stones were able to make up for their shortcomings and flaws in a short period of time, and their foundations became even more perfect. At the same time, his cultivation speed had also increased significantly. In just 3 years, judging from the results of the 1,000 elephant formation, the disciples in Howren's camp were obviously stronger than the other Black Sky sect disciples in the same realm. This result once again attracted the attention of the higher-ups of the Mystic Sky sect, and the sect master of the Mystic Sky sect once again came to Yi Tianzong's Howren Peak. After being asked for the reason, Yi Tianzong secretly cursed his disciples for not knowing how to restrain themselves. He could only reluctantly take out the shadow recording stone that recorded his explanation of the path of cultivation and let the Mystic Sky sect's sect master have a look. After carefully reading the content recorded in the shadow recording stone, the Mystic Sky sect's sect master, Lin Xiantian, looked at Yi Tianzong in surprise. After seeing that Yi Tianzong was a little uncomfortable, Lin Xiantian said, "I didn't expect that I would have underestimated you, kid. However, If you didn't have such a deep understanding of the path of cultivation, you wouldn't have been able to reach such an amazing level. Your explanation of the path of cultivation from King Wu's realm to the sixth heaven of mythological realm is very profound and comprehensive. Even if I were to explain it, I might not be able to do it better than you. The things recorded in this shadow recording stone will be of great help and guidance to the disciples of the sect. For the development of the sect, you know what I mean, right? After Lin Xiantian finished speaking, he looked at Yi Tianzong with a leisurely expression. Yi Tianzong sighed and said helplessly, "Sigh, it's really hard to hide such a good thing. I understand what you mean. Don't you want all the disciples of the sect to see this thing? I'll just hand it over." Lin Xiantian looked at Yi Tianzong's reluctant expression and said, "Haha. Don't look like you've been wronged. I won't take your things for free. How about this? I'll give you 10 million contribution points and give you 3 chances to choose a divine ability." After hearing that, Yi Tianzong said with a smile, "Thank you, sect master. It's my duty to contribute to the sect. Why would I be unwilling? Is one shadow recording stone enough? If it's not enough, I have a lot more. You can take all of them." "Hey, you." Lin Xiantian looked at Yi Tianzong with a strange expression. It was as if he just realized that Yi Tianzong had such a shameless side. He pointed at Yi Tianzong and waved his hand with a strange expression. Then, he turned around and disappeared. After Black Heaven Sect's sect master left, Yi Tianzong used his contribution points to exchange for a lot of spiritual herbs and natural treasures for cultivation. Then, he went to the scripture library and chose 3 divine abilities that were suitable for Myth Realm Stage 5 and Stage 6. After going into seclusion for another 10 years, Yi Tianzong not only finished cultivating the 3 divine abilities he chose, but he also refined a lot of Grade 6 divine essence pills, divine body pills, and divine soul pills. Divine essence pills, divine body pills, and divine soul pills were the godly medicinal pills that all Myth Realm elites needed the most. There were also many other types of divine level pills that could increase a Myth Realm elite's divine essence, divine body, and divine soul. However, they were not as common as these 3 types of pills. The grades of divine essence pills, divine body pills, and divine soul pills were very simple. They were Grade 1, Grade 2, Grade 3, and all the way to Grade 9. Grade 1 divine essence pills, divine body pills, and divine soul pills were suitable for Myth Realm elites cultivation. Similarly, Grade 9 divine essence pills, divine body pills, and divine soul pills were suitable for Myth Realm elites cultivation. After Yi Tianzong prepared a lot of pills, he asked Black Heaven Sect's sect master again. He wanted to enter the world battlefield to train before he reached the Divine King realm. For this reason, Black Heaven Sect's sect master specially gathered the upper echelons of Black Heaven Sect and discussed with the other temple masters. In the end, they agreed to Yi Tianzong's request. The more outstanding Yi Tianzong's performance was, the more reluctant Black Heaven Sect's upper echelons were to let Yi Tianzong enter the world battlefield, a place where danger lurked everywhere. If Black Heaven Sect was a paragon force, they would still encourage Yi Tianzong to enter the world battlefield. However, the reality was that Black Heaven Sect was only a relatively weak emperor-level force. With Yi Tianzong's potential and strength, it was very likely that he would become a great emperor in the future and become Black Heaven Sect's pillar of support. If Yi Tianzong encountered any danger in the world battlefield and died, it would be an immeasurable loss to Black Heaven Sect. However, the growth of elites and prodigies was accompanied by endless dangers and challenges. If Yi Tianzong wanted to become a divine king or great emperor, he would have to face it himself. No one else could help him. As a result, Black Heaven Sect's upper echelons could only agree to Yi Tianzong's request while worrying about their gains and losses. Yi Tianzong did not waste any time after his request to go to the world battlefield was approved. A month later, Yi Tianzong followed the Black Heaven Sect's group to the world battlefield. After several months, they arrived at the War God Hall at the edge of the world battlefield. Yi Tianzong followed the Black Heaven Sect's group to the world battlefield this time. They were all true disciples of Black Heaven Sect. There were 500 of them, and 40 of them were on the true disciple rankings. The leader was a mid-God King elder under Black Heaven Sect's sect master. His name was Su Yuechuan. Su Yuechuan knew that Yi Tianzong was favored by Lin Xiantian. He also knew that Yi Tianzong would definitely become a God King in the future. As a result, he treated Yi Tianzong rather kindly along the way. Chapter 276. Due to the divine exemption talisman that Yi Tianzong had obtained from killing enemies in the world battlefield, Su Yuechuan was able to enter the third layer of the Myth Realm's fifth and sixth layers as a mid-God King. In the past, the Mystic Sky sect only had 2 divine exemption talismans, which were not enough. Therefore, the Mystic Sky sect only established strongholds in the first and second layer of the world battlefield. They did not have the strength to establish a stronghold in the third layer. The main reason why Su Yuechuan, a mid-God King, led 500 true disciples to the world battlefield this time was to establish a stronghold of the Mystic Sky sect in the third layer. In the future, the Mystic Sky sect's God King experts would take turns to guard this place. With a super powerful disciple like Yi Tianzong, the difficulty of Su Yuechuan establishing a stronghold in the third layer of the world battlefield would undoubtedly be greatly reduced. This was because after establishing a stronghold, they would need a safe activity area, which was the core area under the Mystic Sky sect's jurisdiction. Where would this safe activity area come from? It was not a random area that could be said to be a safe activity area of the Mystic Sky sect's stronghold. It would only be effective if all the nearby forces agreed. How would they get the other forces' approval? They could only settle it through battle until they agreed. This was also the usual practice of every layer of the world battlefield. This way, the Mystic Sky sect's disciples would have to compete with the disciples of the other forces and display enough strength to be recognized. With Yi Tianzong as his disciple, Su Yuechuan was not afraid of anything. They could just bring it on. Su Yuechuan led the Mystic Sky sect's disciples to the third layer of the Mystic Sky sect. They built the Mystic Sky City in an area where the Emperor-level forces branches were relatively sparse. The Mystic Sky City occupied an area of 50 miles and was built to accommodate 100,000 people. When the construction began, Yi Tianzong showed Su Yuechuan the blueprint of the battle fortress. It had both offensive and defensive capabilities and could also fly in the air. If they encountered an irresistible danger, they could change places at any time. When Su Yuechuan saw the construction plan of the Mystic Sky City provided by Yi Tianzong, he immediately threw the construction plan of the Mystic Sky City aside. What bullsh*t? Compared to Yi Tianzong's plan, it was simply bullsh*t. Su Yuechuan gathered all the Mystic Sky sect's disciples and let Yi Tianzong lead them. Since they had brought plenty of materials before they came, Su Yuechuan asked Yi Tianzong to build it. As long as the Mystic Sky City could be built according to Yi Tianzong's plan, it didn't matter even if they used up all the materials. In a dangerous place like the world battlefield, having a shelter city with strong defense and attack power was definitely the most important thing. It was worth it no matter how many resources and materials were used. In Yi Tianzong's battle fortress, the battle fortress of Yi Tiansky cities, was Yi Mystic not to be a battle to built it Mystic Sky City was Tianzong's. Yi domain Yi was Mystic Yi to the Sky City cities Yi. After the completion of the Xiantian city, Su Yuechuan specially tested the extent to which the Xiantian city's defenses were fully activated. When the Xiantian city's defenses were fully activated, it could withstand Su Yuechuan's attacks continuously for 10 times. And as long as there was enough energy, it could continue to resist. Then, Su Yuechuan experienced the attack power of the Mystic Sky City. Under the attack of the divine light of destruction, even Su Yuechuan felt threatened. After experiencing it personally, Sui Wechuan was very happy and praised Yi Tianzong endlessly. He said that he would definitely report to the upper echelons of the sect and ask for credit for Yi Tianzong. After the construction of the Mystic Sky City was completed, Sui Wechuan led the Mystic Sky Sect's disciples to set up the Mystic Sky Sect's mark within 5,000 miles of the Mystic Sky City, indicating that it was the territory of the Mystic Sky Sect. Then, he sent a letter of visit to the 20 Emperor-level forces and sects within a 1,000,000-mile radius. The general idea was that the Mystic Sky Sect had built a Mystic Sky City within a 1,000,000-mile radius and had set up a safe area for the Mystic Sky Sect to operate in. They welcomed all the major forces to visit in half a year. Although it was called a visit, it was actually a challenge. After receiving the Mystic Sky Sect's letter of visit, the 20 Emperor-level forces within a 1,000,000-mile radius also sent their own teams to the Mystic Sky City to test the Mystic Sky Sect's strength. The third level of the world battlefield was vast and boundless. The 1,000,000-mile radius was not even comparable to a drop in the ocean. Moreover, for safety reasons, Sui Wechuan chose an area where the branches of the forces were relatively sparse. The surrounding forces were all Emperor-level forces. The 20 Emperor-level forces within a 1,000,000-mile radius came from the 5 upper-class world. There were 3 forces from the human race world, 5 forces from the ancient race world, 4 forces from the god race world, 4 forces from the devil race world, and 4 forces from the spirit race world. Half a year later, a total of 20 Emperor-level forces from the 5 upper-class worlds arrived at the Mystic Sky City. Other than the 3 Emperor-level forces from the human race world who had a decent attitude, the other 4 Emperor-level forces from the upper-class worlds were all hostile. Seeing this situation, Sui Wechuan did not have the mood to talk nonsense with these forces. He directly brought up the topic and started fighting. This battle was divided into 5 days. Each Emperor-level force sent out 10 disciples to fight with the disciples of the Mystic Sky Sect. There were a total of 20 rounds. As long as the disciples of the Mystic Sky Sect could persist for 10 rounds, they would pass and obtain the recognition of the 20 Emperor-level forces. This time, Sui Wechuan directly sent out all the 40 people on the ranking list who had followed him. Yi Tianzong was the last to be sent out. However, the performance of the other 40 successor disciples disappointed Sui Wechuan. When facing the disciples of the other Emperor-level forces, although they were not completely wiped out, they did not perform very well. It was not only the difference in strength, but also the difference in combat experience and aura. This was because the shadow recording stone of Yi Tianzong, explaining the path of cultivation, could be publicly exchanged in the Mystic Sky Sect. All the successor disciples of the Mystic Sky Sect had made considerable progress. Otherwise, the result would be even worse. Fortunately, Yi Tianzong finally cleaned up the mess. After discussing with Sui Wechuan, in order to avoid being too outstanding and being targeted by all the forces, Yi Tianzong only performed better than the strongest disciples of the 20 Emperor-level forces. After 5 days of battle, under Yi Tianzong's intentional control, the Mystic Sky Sect finally achieved 13 victories and 7 draws. This caused the 20 Emperor-level forces to have no choice but to acknowledge the existence of the Mystic Sky Sect. The area within a radius of 10,000 miles was the territory of the Mystic Sky Sect, and they also agreed to the safe area designated by the Mystic Sky Sect. The Mystic Sky Sect successfully established a stronghold in the 3rd level of the world battlefield and settled down. Everything was on the right track. In the blink of an eye, 20 years had passed. In these 20 years, the headquarters of the Mystic Sky Sect in the human race's greater thousand world had sent out 3,000 disciples, deacons, elders, and so on to Mystic Sky City. Sui Wechuan was still in charge of managing the affairs of Mystic Sky City and overseeing it. After the Mystic Sky Sect had enough manpower, they began to send people to explore the world battlefield and search for the hidden resource veins and primordial crystal veins in the world battlefield. Yi Tianzong also began his own exploration journey. At the same time, he recovered the rogue appearance that he used in the second level of the world battlefield. Chapter 277. Because Yi Tianzong still had 4 immunity talismans, after refining one of them, Yi Tianzong directly went to the second layer of the world battlefield. After arriving at the second layer of the world battlefield, Yi Tianzong didn't do anything else. Instead, he hid his body and aura and went to the underground tunnel that he had opened to avoid the demon race, phoenix race, and ancient race's alert range. After returning to the underground tunnel, Yi Tianzong directly continued to mine for crystals. Previously, in the second layer of the world battlefield, Yi Tianzong had accumulated over 23 million crystals. However, after returning to the profound spirit world, he was left with less than 2 million crystals. This time, Yi Tianzong came to the world battlefield for 2 main purposes. One was to fight against the prodigies of the various races and factions and accumulate battle merits so that he could obtain resources and treasures for the 8th and 9th refinement of the 9 refinements of Nirvana from the War God Temple. The second purpose was to collect more crystals for cultivation and wealth. After reaching the peak of the 6th firmament of Myth Realm, Yi Tianzong had made great progress in all aspects. His mining speed was also much faster than when he was at the 4th firmament of Myth Realm. Yi Tianzong dug for 2 months and stopped for a month to stabilize his mind. After recovering to his peak state, he continued to mine for crystals. After spending a total of 10 years, Yi Tianzong had collected 41 million crystals. In the depths of this large-scale crystal mine, there was a huge gap. In total, Yi Tianzong had collected 65 million crystals. Looking at the empty space, Yi Tianzong thought about it. If he continued to dig, there would be a great risk. He would be discovered by the experts of the demon race, ancient race, and phoenix race. After so many years, the 6 supreme factions of the demon race, phoenix race, and ancient race had sent a large number of people to mine the crystal mine. Although they couldn't compare to Yi Tianzong in terms of speed, they had a lot of people. After 100 years of mining, at least a third of the entire large-scale crystal mine had been excavated. It wasn't safe to continue digging, so Yi Tianzong gave up on the idea of fishing in troubled waters. In any case, with his abilities, it wasn't difficult to find a large-scale crystal mine in the world battlefield. There was no need to fight to the death here. Among the 6 layers of the world battlefield, the first layer's resources were the most barren. The deeper you went, the more resources there were. In fact, Yi Tianzong thought that being able to find 2 large yuan crystal veins within a radius of several million miles in the second layer was really a stroke of luck. After Yi Tianzong made up his mind, he used his divine ability to flatten all the passages and spaces he opened up underground. Then, he used the chaotic divination technique to completely disperse all traces of his stay here. Finally, he clapped his hands and left. After leaving, Yi Tianzong first went to the place where he found the resource mine and the crystal mine. Then, he went to the Black Heaven sect's stronghold in the second layer of the world battlefield. There, he met the law enforcement elder. The law enforcement elder was very happy to see Yi Tianzong again. When he saw that Yi Tianzong was now at the peak of the 6th heaven of Myth Realm, he couldn't help but praise Yi Tianzong. Then, he asked about the purpose of Yi Tianzong's visit. Yi Tianzong didn't keep him in suspense and said, "Elder, this time I came to tell you the location of the 2 relatively close medium-sized yuan crystal veins. In the past 100 years, more than half of that small-sized yuan crystal vein should have been mined. After mining this small-sized yuan crystal vein, you can go and mine the other 2 medium-sized yuan crystal veins. I won't come to the second layer of the world battlefield in the future. I'll tell you the location of the 2 medium-sized crystal mines that are relatively close to us. They're about 500,000 miles and 800,000 miles away from our Black Heaven city. I've set up a concealment formation at each of the 2 crystal mines. I've already checked them, but they haven't been discovered. If you have time now, I'll take you to have a look. After hearing Yi Tianzong's words, the law enforcement elder said excitedly, I have time, of course I have time. Even if I don't, I have to squeeze some time out. This kind of important matter can't be delayed. Let's go now. Therefore, Yi Tianzong and the law enforcement elder secretly left Black Heaven City. Along the way, they concealed their aura and tracks and secretly came to the location of the nearest medium-sized crystal mine. Yi Tianzong looked around and confirmed that there was no one else within 1,000 miles. Then, he opened the concealment formation and entered the interior of the formation with the law enforcement elder. Yi Tianzong took the law enforcement elder to the place where he had mined crystals before with ease and said, When I discovered this crystal mine, I mined some crystals here. In the future, the sect can continue to mine crystals here. After Yi Tianzong took the law enforcement elder to check the place, he continued to the location of the next medium-sized crystal mine. Similarly, Yi Tianzong led the law enforcement elder to the place where he had mined crystals before and let the law enforcement elder have a look. Finally, he told the law enforcement elder the seal to control the concealment formation. Finally, he smiled and said, As for how to deal with these two medium-sized crystal mines, it's up to you to decide. In any case, the sect hasn't finished mining the small crystal mines yet. If you have time, you can come here to earn some extra money. When the time comes, you can just say that I was the one who dug it. I think that I was the one who discovered this mine. Before I decide to hand it over to the sect, as the discoverer and owner, I have the right to mine some crystals. I don't care about the rest. There are also a few other resource veins and yuan crystal veins. I'll take you there to take a look. Those things are all in the territory of the other Supreme Being forces. I'll take you there to take a look. It'll also give you an explanation to the sect and break some unrealistic fantasies. After Yi Tianzong finished speaking, the law enforcement elder's expression changed a few times. He knew that Yi Tianzong had given him a big gift. The location of the two medium-sized crystal mines and the concealment formation were all told to him. As for the previous small crystal mine, it would take the Black Heaven sect at least 40 years to finish mining. During this period of time, with Yi Tianzong covering for him, he could completely and scrupulously excavate the yuan crystal lode. How much he could excavate was his own harvest and had nothing to do with the sect, who didn't know the importance of crystals. Even the Black Heaven sect's sect master, Lin Xuantian's net worth might not be 30 million crystals. Since Yi Tianzong didn't care about these two medium-sized crystal mines, it was very likely that there were better choices, or his net worth was very high. The law enforcement elder pondered for a while. After a while, he finally said with some difficulty, Sai, you really gave this old man a big gift that I can't refuse. This old man will accept your kindness. Take me to the other places to take a look. I'll explain the situation to the sect. Hearing this, Yi Tianzong smiled and said nothing. Then, he led Patriarch of Law Enforcement and the two of them concealed their whereabouts. They cautiously headed towards the other mineral veins and Yuanjing veins. After checking the situation around the other resource veins and crystal veins, the two of them quietly returned to Xiantian City. Chapter 278. After bidding farewell to the law enforcement elder, Yi Tianzong returned to the third level of the world battlefield and began to explore the third level as a rogue. However, in the third level of the world battlefield, all the Emperor-level and Supreme-level factions with strongholds had at least one God-King-level powerhouse overseeing them. Therefore, the third level of the world battlefield was much more dangerous than the second level. Even though Yi Tianzong had regained his rogue identity, he still carefully avoided teams of more than 500 people from the major factions. As time passed, Yi Tianzong crossed paths with many Emperor-level and Supreme-level factions teams. When the teams from the major factions saw Yi Tianzong wandering alone, except for a few who were indifferent, most of the factions had their own thoughts and attacked Yi Tianzong without even greeting him. Yi Tianzong did not hold back against these factions who attacked him without greeting him. He did not hold back and fought with these factions' teams. This was because Yi Tianzong was a junior disciple of the Immortal Mansion. In the 10 boundless domains, no powerhouse, not even a supreme heavenly venerable, could deduce Yi Tianzong's whereabouts and information. Therefore, as long as Yi Tianzong was careful, he would not let anyone or any faction discover his track. After a life-and-death battle with those people from the major factions, Yi Tianzong was able to shake off the pursuit of those emperor-level and supreme-level factions in a short period of time. As Yi Tianzong fought with the major factions within a 1 billion kilometer radius as a rogue, the reputation of the rogue gradually spread. At the same time, because Yi Tianzong had killed many prodigy disciples of many factions, the rogue had also become the main target of most factions within a 1 billion kilometer radius. In order not to arouse anyone's suspicion, Yi Tianzong would return to the Black Heaven sect's stronghold, Black Heaven City, every 10 years. Moreover, because Yi Tianzong cultivated a minor avatar ability, he could condense an avatar with 80% of his strength. Even if Yi Tianzong was thousands of miles away, he could still control the avatar's movements. After Yi Tianzong returned to Black Heaven City, his avatar would still appear in the world battlefield from time to attract the attention of other factions. After resting in Black Heaven City for 3 months, Yi Tianzong would leave Black Heaven City again in the name of looking for resource veins. Elder Su Yuechuan, who had been instructed by Lin Xiantian, did not interfere with Yi Tianzong's actions. In the blink of an eye, 50 years had passed. Yi Tianzong had been in the world battlefield for 70 years this time. In the 50 years that Yi Tianzong had roamed the world battlefield alone, he had fought with hundreds of emperor-ranked and supreme-ranked factions within a radius of 1 billion miles. Every time Yi Tianzong revealed his whereabouts, he would carefully investigate and deliberately choose factions with less than 500 people. Although every battle was very dangerous and could easily lead to death, Yi Tianzong was always able to fight his way out of the encirclement after a life-and-death struggle. The various emperor-ranked and supreme-ranked factions that had a grudge with Yi Tianzong hated Yi Tianzong to the core. At the same time, they were also very wary of Yi Tianzong. Yi Tianzong's strength was too strong. He was also at the peak of the 6th heavenly layer of myth. But those elite heavens prides of emperor and supreme-level forces couldn't fight back against Yi Tianzong. To be able to fight against hundreds of opponents of the same cultivation level and still be able to fight his way out of the encirclement, he was definitely at the level of the top geniuses. No power would tolerate the appearance of an uncontrollable loner. As a result, the various major powers' encirclement and pursuit of Yi Tianzong grew stronger and stronger. Their methods also became more and more ruthless. Meanwhile, as Yi Tianzong engaged in a battle of wits and courage with the various major powers, his survivability and adaptability grew stronger and stronger. His combat experience grew more and more profound. Among all the forces that had enmity with Yi Tianzong, the God race and the Heaven race hated Yi Tianzong the most. Among the 10 colossal worlds of the human race, the Devil race, the God race, the Underworld race, the Blood race, the Ancient race, the Spirit race, the Dragon race, the Phoenix race, and the Heaven race, the God race was the most arrogant and the Heaven race was the most overbearing. This was because, in terms of individual and overall strength, the God race and the Heaven race could rank in the top 3. This was also because the God race and the Heaven race's reproductive ability was relatively weak, and their numbers were much smaller than the overlords of the other colossal worlds. Once the number of the Heaven race and the God race was similar to that of the human race or the Dragon race, then the Heaven race and the God race's colossal world would have an absolute advantage among the 10 colossal worlds. Because Yi Tianzong was a rogue in the 2nd layer of the world battlefield, he was hunted down the most by the God race and the Heaven race, and he was also the most ruthless. Therefore, in the 3rd layer of the world battlefield, Yi Tianzong also had thoughts of revenge. He always used sneak attacks, plots, ambushes, and other means to kill the prodigies of the god race and the heaven race. The arrogant, overbearing, and fierce god race and the heaven race naturally couldn't stand this kind of anger. Therefore, they wanted to tear Yi Tianzong into pieces and crazily chased after Yi Tianzong. Because these emperor-level and supreme-level forces kept chasing after Yi Tianzong, and Yi Tianzong was still alive and active on the world battlefield, the reputation of the rogue became more and more famous in a radius of 1 billion miles. In the process of fighting with the major forces in the past 50 years, Yi Tianzong also found some resource veins and primordial crystal veins. The resource veins he found were all resources that were equivalent to refining emperor weapons or emperor-grade materials. For these resource veins, Yi Tianzong secretly opened up underground passages and spaces to excavate these resource veins. At the same time, Yi Tianzong also opened up underground passages and spaces for one large primordial crystal vein and two medium-sized primordial crystal veins, excavating at least 10 million primordial crystals. Overall, Yi Tianzong's harvest in the world battlefield was still very big over the years. On this day, Yi Tianzong once again escaped the encirclement of a supreme-level force of the god race after a life-and-death struggle. After getting rid of the pursuit of this god race force, Yi Tianzong was already 1 billion miles away from Xiantian City. Yi Tianzong carefully hid his tracks and wandered in the vast world battlefield. After wandering for a month, Yi Tianzong found a strange place. Within 100 miles of where he stood, Yi Tianzong felt extremely obscure fluctuations of laws hidden in the depths of the ground. He had already comprehended more than 70% of the laws of the world and came into contact with the origin of laws. Moreover, in the world battlefield, there were no restrictions on the use of various auxiliary divine abilities, and he was constantly calculating the heaven's secrets. If it was someone else, even a late-stage God-King expert might not be able to detect it. Yi Tianzong cautiously checked everything within 10,000 miles. After confirming that there was no one, he used a divine ability to open up a passage leading underground. After opening up 2 miles, Yi Tianzong used the same method to turn around and flatten the open passage. Then, on the surface, he used the earth escape technique to open up a passage leading to the depths of the ground. The deeper he went, the more obvious the fluctuations of laws became. After going 30 miles underground, Yi Tianzong finally saw the thing emitting the fluctuations of laws. The moment he saw it, Yi Tianzong blurted out in surprise, "Crystals of Laws." Chapter 279. As the name suggested, law crystals were crystals that contained the mysteries of the laws of the world. Every law crystal could help cultivators comprehend the laws of the world in a faster and safer way. At the same time, law crystals were a unique treasure in the world battlefield. Law crystals were also divided into different grades, but even the lowest grade law crystals would contain a trace of the origin of the laws of the world, containing over 70% of the mysteries of the laws of the world. Not only could they help God-King experts comprehend deeper mysteries of the laws, but most importantly, as long as they refined a law crystal, they could allow existences below the God-King realm, or cultivators without the potential to become God-Kings, to have a 90% chance of reaching the God-King realm. Even though God-Kings who refined law crystals would be the weakest God-Kings, and their future cultivation would be over 10 times more difficult than ordinary God-Kings, they could still continue to advance as long as they had law crystals of a higher grade that corresponded to the laws of the world. It could be said that law crystals were a shortcut to a higher realm. Any living being or organization that saw a law crystal would fight for it at all costs. Yi Tianzong found a total of 7 law crystals in the depths of the ground. Each law crystal condensed a kind of law of the world, including the law of illusion, the law of wind, the law of lightning, the law of light, the law of blood, the law of sealing, and the law of formation. There were 7 different kinds of laws of the world in total, and they shone with a dazzling brilliance. When Yi Tianzong saw these crystals of law, He couldn't help but be excited to the point of foolishness even with his powerful spiritual cultivation of late-stage Sea of Heart realm. Finally, he was excited for a quarter of an hour before he barely calmed down and carefully put the crystals of law into his storage ring. In reality, Yi Tianzong could have put these law crystals into his inner world. That way, his inner world would be able to absorb the law crystals and promote the evolution and expansion of his inner world. As long as his inner world absorbed the law crystals, Yi Tianzong, who was connected to his inner world, would be able to completely comprehend the laws contained within the law crystals. However, Yi Tianzong still wanted to bring these law crystals back for Ling Xinyu, and his parents to comprehend them. As a result, after some consideration, he put the law crystals into his storage ring. In the universe, there were countless cultivation methods and systems, each with their own advantages and disadvantages. However, the environment of the profound spirit world, as well as the cultivation system of martial arts, was undoubtedly a powerful and outstanding cultivation method. Not to mention anything else, just in the profound spirit world, as long as one reached the level of wuxing, they would be able to rely on their comprehension of the profound mysteries of heaven and earth to open up a small inner world in their body. As one's cultivation base increased, so long as there were enough resources, the inner world would continue to expand and evolve. When they reached Myth Realm, the people in profound spirit world could choose to give up on upgrading their inner worlds and become normal Myth Realm elite. They could also choose to upgrade their inner worlds and use their inner worlds to cross the threshold of the law of space. However, because the profound spirit world was in the process of recovering, even though there were many powerful treasures of heaven and earth, the overall resources could not be compared to the peak. Coupled with the limitation of lifespan, almost all wuxing elites would give up on their inner worlds and choose the ordinary way to become Myth Realm elite. They would only use their inner worlds as a storage space. However, because Yi Tianzong had the immortal mansion, 4 times the time and a superior cultivation environment, as well as the resources he had accumulated through his many reincarnations, whether it was Yi Tianzong himself, Ling Xinyu, or Yi Haoran, when they reached Myth Realm, they all chose to upgrade their inner worlds together. At this time, Yi Tianzong, who was at the peak of 6th heaven of Myth Realm, had already expanded his inner world to a vast space with a radius of 30,000 miles. Moreover, the 3,000 laws of heaven and earth that Yi Tianzong had comprehended were all engraved in his inner world. Now, the essence of his inner world was no different from the real world, and it could also store living creatures. It was just that the origin and the depth of the laws of heaven and earth it contained were far inferior to a naturally formed world. Yi Tianzong felt that he had hit the jackpot when he unexpectedly found the crystal of laws. He made up his mind not to tell anyone about this matter and to treat it as if it had never happened. Although Yi Tianzong did not mind helping the Black Heaven sect develop and strengthen, it was only a selective help. It was better to keep a rare treasure like the crystal of laws to rot in his stomach. Otherwise, some of the divine kings and those with backgrounds below the divine king realm in the Black Heaven sect would definitely not mind snatching the treasure by force. After discovering the crystal of laws, Yi Tianzong's desire to search for treasures in the world battlefield became even stronger. Therefore, he decisively activated the traceless void, merged with the void, and silently wandered toward where he was. Another 30 years passed in a hurry. After Yi Tianzong left the 1 billion-mile area of the Black Heaven sect, the range of his activities expanded to a 10 billion-mile area. In the past 30 years, Yi Tianzong did not have too many conflicts with the forces within the 10 billion-mile area because his main goal was to search for treasures. Of course, although Yi Tianzong did not deliberately provoke the major races and forces within the 10 billion-mile area, he did not show mercy when he encountered those who had evil intentions toward him. Apart from the divine race and the gray race, Yi Tianzong would fight the other races and forces if he could win. If he could not win, he would run as far away as possible. As for the divine race and the gray race, he maintained his usual style of fighting them to the death. He would ambush and plot against them by any means necessary. In fact, it was not that Yi Tianzong had to go against the divine race and the gray race. No one would want to make more enemies. Yi Tianzong did not want to cause trouble everywhere. It was just that the divine race and the gray race were too arrogant, domineering, and vicious. From the first time Yi Tianzong appeared in the first-level area of the world battlefield and encountered the gray race and the divine race for the first time, the divine race and the gray race took the initiative to provoke Yi Tianzong and the Black Heaven sect team that Yi Tianzong was in. They chased after them everywhere. When Yi Tianzong appeared as a rogue in the second-level area of the world battlefield, the divine race and the gray race also took the initiative to kill him. After he fought back, they still pursued him to the end. This time, in the third-level area of the world battlefield, when they saw Yi Tianzong alone, and he was a human, the first reaction of all the divine race and the gray race forces was to kill Yi Tianzong. Yi Tianzong almost wondered if he had offended the divine race and the gray race. Because he remembered that treasure hunting was his main goal, after Yi Tianzong killed a few divine race and the gray race creatures at the beginning, he stayed far away from the divine race and the gray race's sphere of influence. However, he did not expect that the divine race and the gray race would still not give up until they killed Yi Tianzong. They chased after Yi Tianzong everywhere. The annoyed Yi Tianzong was also annoyed. He completely made up his mind to fight the divine race and the gray race to the end, and would not compromise. In the future, in other areas of the world battlefield, Yi Tianzong also decided to fight the divine race and the gray race to the end. In addition to fighting, Yi Tianzong's treasure hunting in the past 30 years could be considered to have gained a lot. In addition to the 7 law crystals that he was lucky to find at the beginning, he also found 2 large primal crystal veins, 3 medium-sized primal crystal veins, and 10 Emperor-level resource veins. These 10 Emperor-level resource veins had 5 elements: gold essence, yin-yang true crystal, sky feather illusion crystal, and so on. They were all hidden more than 5 miles underground and had not been discovered by any forces. Yi Tianzong marked the locations of these primal crystal veins and resource veins and opened up tunnels and spaces underground to collect these primal crystal veins and resource veins. Yi Tianzong's greatest gain was that in the 100 years he had spent in the world battlefield, he had collected all the resources and treasures needed to cultivate the Nirvana refining 8 refinement through killing all kinds of enemies. This was a pleasant surprise that exceeded Yi Tianzong's expectations. Yi Tianzong originally thought that he would have to wait until he left the world battlefield to exchange at the War God Temple. Chapter 280. The reason was that Yi Tianzong had underestimated the value of the people who had come to the world battlefield. It must be known that all the living beings from the 10 greater worlds who could come to the world battlefield were definitely elites and outstanding figures of their respective forces. Otherwise, if a regular disciple or member came to the world battlefield, they would not be there to help or contribute to their organization. Instead, they would be there to cause trouble. The elite disciples and prodigies of the countless monarch-level organizations, emperor-level organizations, and sovereign-level organizations all possessed great fortune in the first place. They were extremely rich in resources and wealth. In the past, Yi Tianzong had fought with many forces to the death. If he was lucky enough to survive, he would be thankful. As for those enemies who were killed by him, they didn't even have time to run for their lives. How could they have a chance to pick up the spoils? However, in the 3rd zone of the world battlefield this time, for the sake of safety, Yi Tianzong had chosen groups of less than 500 people. Moreover, when he saw groups with god kings, he would hide far away as soon as he could. He would even ambush enemies who were alone. In the 80 years of wandering, Yi Tianzong couldn't remember how many enemies he had killed. Most of the enemies he killed, Yi Tianzong would run away as soon as he could after looting the spoils of war. In the 80 years, Yi Tianzong had unknowingly collected all the resources and treasures he needed for the 8th refinement of the 9 refinements of nirvana. He had even collected a portion of the resources and treasures he needed for the 9th refinement. If it were not for the fact that Yi Tianzong had checked the spoils of war he had obtained in the past few years while he was resting, he would have never known that he had made such a harvest. Looks like I've been careless. I've actually forgotten that the people who can come to the world battlefield are all elites of various organizations and clans. They've all brought many resources and treasures with them. They're all fat sheep. Looks like I'll have to work harder in the future. Perhaps I'll be able to gather enough resources and treasures without having to go to the War God Hall to exchange for them. I'll be able to exchange the contribution points I save for even more useful resources so that I can establish a firm foundation for breaking through to God King in the future, Yi Tianzong murmured to himself as he lay in a 10-meter-long space underground. Since he'd already gathered all the resources and treasures required for the 8th tempering of the 9 refinements of rebirth, then there was no need to wait any longer, and he could directly cultivate it. Yi Tianzong made up his mind to cultivate the secret technique in the world battlefield. He did not want to wait until he returned to the Black Heaven sect. As for the issue of safety, where else could compare to the depths of the world battlefield? The world battlefield was a place that connected the 10 super-major worlds. Although it was only the size of a high-level major world, its spatial strength, material density, and hardness were thousands of times greater than the 10 super-major worlds. For example, the 3rd level of the world battlefield was an area where creatures at the 5th and 6th levels of the mythological stage were active. However, in the 3rd level of the world battlefield, even a peak God King in the Great Perfection stage would not be able to create a 2-mile-deep hole in the ground with a full-powered strike. Moreover, the deeper one went underground, the harder it was. Even a great emperor would not be able to create a 5-mile-deep hole in one go. On the other hand, Yi Tianzong was not restricted by the world battlefield's rules. He could use his divine ability and spend some effort and energy to open up an underground tunnel that went 100 miles deep underground. This was also the benefit of Yi Tianzong's identity as a junior disciple recognized by the Immortal Mansion. Yi Tianzong spent 2 months to open up a tunnel that went 100 miles deep underground. This was the deepest underground he could reach at the moment. After spending another month 100 miles underground, they opened up a 200-meter-long 3-dimensional space. Then, they turned back and flattened all the tunnels that led to the depths of the underground. This way, Yi Tianzong was equivalent to cultivating in a 2-mile-wide 3-dimensional space that was 100 miles deep underground. There was no way to reach this space. In addition, Yi Tianzong had set up a concealment array in the underground space to conceal his aura and fluctuations. It could be said to be foolproof. There was no safer place than here. This time, it was different from before. With the help of the profound spirit world's heaven and earth origin, Yi Tianzong spent 3 years to absorb a large amount of resources and treasures. Finally, he completed the 8th refinement of the 9 refinements of nirvana. After completing the cultivation, Yi Tianzong could clearly feel that he had improved a lot in all aspects. His overall strength had increased by about 30%. What a mysterious and unfathomable secret technique. After completing the 7th refinement of nirvana, I have reached the peak in all aspects. I am not inferior to those supreme forces and supreme heavenly venerables. Now that my strength has increased by another 30%, I have definitely surpassed those supreme heavenly venerables. In the 10 great worlds, there are only a few supreme heavenly venerables who can compare to me. However, it's still not enough. I should set my sights further. In the 10,000 worlds, there are definitely many supreme forces that can dominate many worlds. The supreme heavenly venerables nurtured by those supreme forces are my target. Now I should be able to compare with those supreme heavenly venerables. However, there is still a huge gap between me and the supreme heavenly venerables. Only by completing the entire secret technique, comprehending more laws and condensing more law origin can I close the gap between me and those supreme heavenly venerables. The divine king realm is the time for me to truly erupt. Yi Tianzong leisurely imagined the scene of him fighting against the supreme heavenly venerables. His heart calmed down because of the improvement in his strength. After 3 more days of adjustment, Yi Tianzong was about to continue using his divine ability to open up a new passageway to the surface when he suddenly thought of something. Could he leave the world battlefield directly and return to the outer cultivation area of the Heaven's Expanse Immortal Mansion? Let's give it a try. Yi Tianzong thought of leaving. Then, in an instant, Yi Tianzong's figure disappeared into the space 100 miles underground. It felt like an instant or an endless amount of time. When Yi Tianzong regained consciousness, he found himself standing in front of the colorful barrier. So, he could directly leave the world battlefield. Yi Tianzong thought happily in his mind. But why was it that when he was fighting with the enemy and was in a desperate situation, he couldn't leave? Could it be that he couldn't leave when he was in a state of battle and could only leave when there was no one around? Yes, that should be the case. It seemed like there should be a housekeeper in the immortal mansion who was controlling everything and paying attention to his actions. It was no wonder that when he was fighting, he would be restricted by the world battlefield's rules just like the other living beings from other races and factions. However, when he wasn't fighting or searching for treasures, the restrictions of the rules were very small. Yi Tianzong, who understood, lifted his head and looked at the top of the immortal mansion that was hidden in the depths of the endless primal chaos. He kept having the feeling that there was a pair of eyes looking at him. Then his expression changed and he said, "It's my great fortune that the immortal mansion chose me. I don't think that you have any ill intentions toward me. Even if you do, I'll just take it as repaying your kindness. But if you dare to peek at me being intimate with my wife, after I inherit the immortal mansion, I'll kill you." After Yi Tianzong said that, he chuckled and headed toward the outer cultivation area. Just as Yi Tianzong was heading back, at the top of the immortal mansion hidden in the depths of the endless primal chaos, this was a vast and boundless immortal realm. In this vast and boundless immortal realm, the 3,000 chaos great Daos that were above the 3,000 laws of heaven and earth were like a great Dao net that covered the boundless primal chaos. It was fixed in the sky above this vast immortal realm by an unimaginable method. In the immortal realm, the great Dao's charm permeated the air. Countless Dao sources that contained the great Dao's charm floated in the air. The pure chaos vital chi that was above the heaven and earth vital chi formed a mist that filled the entire immortal realm. Pools of chaos vital chi formed by pure chaos vital chi could be seen everywhere. There were also all kinds of rare treasures that were rare in the universe. They could be seen everywhere in the immortal realm. This was a blessed land that could make all the super forces in the universe go crazy for. At this moment, at the center of the immortal realm, a hazy white light figure that seemed to be standing at the peak of the chaos great Tao said softly, "Ha! You've finally discovered it? Your mentality is not bad. The Tao of the heart that he created has some skill. But this brat is really... Forget it, I won't lower myself to your level." The hazy white light figure didn't know whether to laugh or cry when Yi Tianzong said that he was peeping at other people being intimate. However, because of his and Yi Tianzong's identity, he could only grumble a little in the end. Yi Tianzong didn't know what was happening in the depths of the immortal mansion. After he returned to the cultivation area outside the immortal mansion, he found Ling Xinyue and Shen Yu who were cultivating and comprehending the laws of heaven and earth. Yi Tianzong had a good time with the two of them for half a month. Then, he took out 7 law crystals for the two of them to comprehend. He accompanied Ling Xinyue and Shen Yu for 2 years. During this time, he also showed up at the Hao Ranjin sect a few times. After understanding the recent development of the Hao Ranjin sect, he announced that he would go into seclusion again. Chapter 281. Yi Tianzong had already comprehended the 7 laws of heaven and earth contained in the 7 law crystals when he was in the world battlefield. Now Yi Tianzong had comprehended more than 70% of the elemental law, space law, time law, light-darkness law, yin-yang law, illusion law, wind law, thunder law, light law, blood law, seal law, formation law, and more than a dozen other laws. He had also condensed a trace of law origin. After staying with Ling Xinyue and Xin Yu in the Immortal Mansion for 2 years, Yi Tianzong bade farewell to the two and continued to enter the world battlefield. When he opened his eyes, Yi Tianzong found that he had returned to the underground space he had left before. After tidying up, Yi Tianzong used his divine ability to open up a passage to the surface. When he felt that he was less than 2 miles away from the surface, he directly used the Earth Escape technique to return to the surface. It had been more than 10 years since the last time he returned to Xiantian City. Yi Tianzong planned to go back and take a look. He also planned to tell Elder Su Yuechuan, who was in charge of Xiantian City, about the discovery of a medium-sized yuan crystal vein more than 1,000,000 miles away from Xiantian City. He wanted the Xiantian sect to have a foundation in the 3rd level area. It took half a year for Yi Tianzong to hide his tracks along the way. Finally, he returned to Xiantian City. After resting for a day, he found Elder Su Yuechuan. Elder Su Yuechuan had been a little worried recently. It had been 100 years since the establishment of the stronghold in the 3rd level area. However, after such a long time, not only did the disciples of the Xiantian sect not find any resources, but they also lost more than 200 true disciples of the 5th and 6th level of the mythical realm. Back then, for safety reasons, they settled down in a relatively remote and resource-poor place. However, the disadvantages were also very obvious. Now that they could not open up the situation and find any resource veins, they could not bring any benefits to the sect. This put a lot of pressure on Elder Su Yuechuan. He wanted to send disciples to explore again, but he was afraid that the sect disciples would be attacked by other forces again and suffer losses. While Su Yuechuan was worrying, Yi Tianzong came to the door. Elder Su Yuechuan did not care about Yi Tianzong, who often left alone at first. He was only worried about Yi Tianzong's safety. However, as the reputation of the rogue spread, Su Yuechuan had some guesses when he thought of Yi Tianzong's elusive strength and Yi Tianzong. Especially when he thought of sect master Lin Xuantian's instructions, he was told not to interfere with any decisions of Yi Tianzong and not to ask about his whereabouts. He also asked him to cover the fact that Yi Tianzong often left alone. The fact that Su Yuechuan was able to become a divine king and gain Lin Xuantian's approval to become the Black Heaven sect master's right-hand man meant that he was extremely intelligent and intelligent. Yi Tianzong was very likely to be the famous rogue, after some analysis. Therefore, although Su Yuechuan was puzzled by Yi Tianzong's arrival, he did not neglect it. Yi Tianzong could become a divine king. This was a fact that all the divine king powerhouses in the Black Heaven sect knew. This was because Yi Tianzong already had all the conditions to become a divine king. He just needed to go through the heavenly thunder tribulation. The exact time depended on his mood. According to the information he learned about rogues, Su Yuechuan clearly knew how amazing and powerful Yi Tianzong was. Even under the encirclement and interception of so many Emperor-level and Supreme-level forces, he was still able to kill his way out. He was active in the world battlefield, and from time to time, he would secretly intercept and kill the genius disciples of the major forces. Su Yuechuan could not help but feel his blood boil at the thought of those scenes. He knew that the sect had an amazing prodigy. As long as he did not die, his future was limitless. The Divine King realm was just his starting point. Su Yuechuan received Yi Tianzong with a gentle expression. He did not mention a word about the speculation that Yi Tianzong was a rogue. However, Su Yuechuan did not expect Yi Tianzong to send him a big gift this time. "Is what you said true?" You found an ownerless medium-sized yuan crystal lode? Su Yuechuan asked Yi Tianzong excitedly. If this news was true, then Yi Tianzong had helped him a lot. All the problems he had been worrying about would be solved. At the same time, the sect would also gain a huge amount of wealth. Yi Tianzong looked at the excited Su Yuechuan and smiled. He naturally knew why Su Yuechuan was so excited. Then, he took out a sparkling yuan crystal from his storage ring and handed it to Su Yuechuan. I dug this out from that yuan crystal lode. Elder, you should not be suspicious now. Su Yuechuan took the crystal from Yi Tianzong's hand. Feeling the unique and pure energy, he happily said, "That's right, this is a crystal. Haha, Tianzong's true disciple, your information has really helped this old man a great deal. This old man really doesn't know how to thank you, but don't worry, this old man swears to report your contributions and merits to the sect without discount. I won't be greedy." Yi Tianzong smiled casually and said, "Elder Su is too serious. Everyone is working hard for the development of the sect. There is no time to lose. If Elder has time, I will take you to see this yuan crystal lode now. It is about 1,000,000 miles away from our Xiantian city. We still need to pay attention to the concealment." Okay, I have time. I will tell them. Let's go take a look." Then, Su Yuechuan called a true disciple and told him some things. Then, he followed Yi Tianzong. After the two left Xiantian city, they disappeared without a trace. A month later, Yi Tianzong and Su Yuechuan arrived at the middle-sized yuan crystal lode more than 1,000,000 miles away. After entering the concealment formation set up by Yi Tianzong, Su Yuechuan looked at the yuan crystal lode in front of him with an excited expression. Seeing Su Yuechuan gradually calm down, Yi Tianzong said, "Elder Su, this yuan crystal lode is more than 1,000,000 miles away from our Xiantian city. If we want to mine it safely, we need to think of a proper method. Otherwise, if news of this gets out, it will be a disaster for us." The temptation of yuan crystals was extraordinary. When Su Yuechuan saw the yuan crystal lode exposed before him, he became greedy as well. He wanted to take the yuan crystals for himself. However, his mental fortitude as a mid-god king was very powerful. After the greed passed, reason prevailed. He knew that the yuan crystal lode was not something he could take for himself. After hearing Yi Tianzong's words, Su Yuechuan thought about it and said, "Tianzong, I heard that your attainments in formations are extraordinary. I wonder if you can set up a teleportation formation to Xiantian City. That way we won't be exposed due to the distance. It'll be much safer as well." After a while of thought, Yi Tianzong replied, "I can set up a teleportation formation, but Elder, you know that not only do teleportation formations in the world battlefield require 10 times more materials and resources than in our world, but even the distance is greatly reduced. If you want to go to our Xiantian city, you'll need 2 teleportation formations at the very least. With our current situation on the 3rd floor, it's not worth it at all. Moreover, if we set up a teleportation formation with so many people, it'll raise the suspicion of the surrounding organizations, which will increase our chances of being exposed." Seeing Su Yuechuan's frown, Yi Tianzong continued, "Elder Su, in my opinion, why don't we directly move Xiantian City here and place it where the yuan crystal lode is? Of course, we need to make some preparations before that. We need to make the surrounding organizations think that we've lost a lot of people, but we haven't found any resources and are forced to leave due to great pressure." "That's right." Su Yuechuan's eyes lit up when he heard Yi Tianzong's words. That really was a good idea, so he decided to do that. Chapter 282. After making his decision, Su Yuechuan's entire body relaxed. Then, he looked at the sparkling and translucent crystals before him, wanting to say something. Yi Tianzong saw through Su Yuechuan's thoughts and said, "Elder Su, I think it will take at least a year for the plan to be completed and for Xiantian City to migrate. During this period of time, if Elder Su has time, You can come and take a look at the Yuan crystal mine to prevent other factions from discovering it. I think I was the one who discovered this Yuan crystal mine. Before I tell Elder, this Yuan crystal mine should belong to me. Since that's the case, it's natural for me to mine some Yuan crystals. No one can interfere, right? Su Yuechuan thought that Yi Tianzong was trying to explain that the Yuan crystal vein in front of him had traces of being mined, so he replied, "That's right. The Yuan crystal vein was discovered by you when you were exploring alone. You didn't use the power of the sect. Before you decide to hand it over to the sect, it belongs to you. No one can doubt this kind of thing." Su Yuechuan was indeed talking about the rules of the world battlefield. Although any faction established a stronghold in the world battlefield to search for resources and bring benefits to the sect, the ownership of the resources found also depended on the situation. If a sect sent a team to find a resource mine, then the ownership of the mine would naturally belong to the sect. The discoverer would receive 1/10, 0.000th to 1/1000th of the resources as a reward. If an individual didn't rely on the sect's background and found a resource while wandering, then the ownership of the resource would belong to that individual. Yi Tianzong didn't use the Xiantian sect's background. The resource mine that he found naturally belonged to him. Yi Tianzong was satisfied with Su Yuechuan's answer and said, "Well, then this Yuan crystal mine will be handed over to Elder to manage in the future. Before Xiantian City migrates here, even if some of the Yuan crystal mine is mined, Elder can count it on me." It was easy to talk to smart people. Su Yuechuan wasn't stupid, so he understood what Yi Tianzong meant. It was a hint to him that in the year before Xiantian City moved here, he could come here under the name of Yi Tianzong to collect crystals. How much he could collect would depend on his own ability. But once Xiantian City moved here, he couldn't do that anymore. As for how he would reply to the sect when the time came, that was his business. In any case, Yi Tianzong's credit couldn't be taken away. Su Yuechuan easily understood what Yi Tianzong meant. He wanted to give him a big gift, and it was a gift that he could not refuse. He knew that crystals were something that could only be found by chance in the Great Thousand World. They could only be produced in the world battlefield. After thinking for a while, Su Yuechuan finally said solemnly, "Thank you, Tianzong. If there is a need in the future, as long as it is not beyond the scope of my ability and principles, I will not refuse." When Yi Tianzong heard Su Yuechuan's words, he smiled and didn't say anything. Then he said goodbye to Su Yuechuan and left alone. After Yi Tianzong left, he once again wandered alone in the world battlefield as a rogue. This time, Yi Tianzong made up his mind. In addition to taking time to collect some resource veins and Yuan crystal veins that he had discovered before, he would specifically attack the enemy forces with less than 100 people to collect the resources he needed. Kill. No matter what the price is, we must delay the damn rogue. We must not let him run away. Our support is about to arrive. A prodigy at the peak of the 6th heavenly layer of the Protoss was full of killing intent. After shouting angrily, he directly waved the divine fist of heaven and earth, with all his strength to attack Yi Tianzong, who was slaughtering his companions. This 6th heavenly layer Protoss prodigy was called Shin Xiantian. He was the direct descendant of a supreme holy land in the Protoss Great Thousand World. Shin Xiantian was not only ranked in the top 3 among all the 6th heavenly layers of the Supreme Holy Land, but also ranked in the top 300 in the entire Protoss Great Thousand World. He was the top prodigy of the Protoss Great Thousand World. Among all the 6th heavenly layer Protoss in the Protoss Great Thousand World, those who could rank in the top 3,000 were existences who could fight head-on with ordinary early-stage divine kings. Shin Xiantian could rank in the top 300. His strength could fight against ordinary middle-stage divine kings. The Protoss and the Heaven clan were the favorites of heaven and earth in their respective Great Thousand World. They were born with noble bloodlines and strong physique. The overall population of the Protoss was much smaller than that of the human clan, but compared with the same realm, the Protoss were undoubtedly stronger than most of the human clan. Shin Xiantian had once fought with some Protoss of the Supreme Holy Land in the human clan's Great Thousand World in the world battlefield, but none of them could beat him. Most of them were much worse than him. Only a few people could be on par with him. Therefore, although Shin Xiantian admitted that the Protoss of the human clan were extraordinary, they were just extraordinary. At most, they were stronger than him. He didn't think that there were any Protoss of the human clan who could crush him in the same realm. But today, he met the most powerful enemy in history, the Rogue. Shin Xiantian had heard about the Rogue before, but the arrogant character of the Protoss made him think that those rumors were just rumors, lies made up by those losers to cover up their incompetence. He once said publicly that if he met the Rogue, he would let the Rogue know the power of the Protoss and make the Rogue kneel and beg for mercy to become his servant. But today, he met the Rogue by chance, and Shin Xiantian knew the horror of the Rogue. Shin Xiantian originally led 100 mythical 6th stage Protoss from the Great Thousand World to replace his fellow Protoss in the world battlefield. But he didn't know what was wrong with Shin Xiantian today. He inexplicably wanted to change direction and said with a smile, "I hope I can meet the so-called Rogue today. I'll let him know how powerful I am. I want him to be my servant and beg for death." Hey! It didn't matter what Shin Xiantian said. After all, the Rogue had a grudge against the Protoss. But coincidentally, Shin Xiantian inexplicably changed direction. Yi Tianzong just happened to use Traceless Void and quietly flew over Shin Xiantian and the others. In this way, Shin Xuantian's words were all heard by Yi Tianzong. What the F***ck? 2 days ago, he had just ambushed 100 Protoss team. Yi Tianzong wanted to let go of the Protoss in front of him and find trouble with the Grey Force. As a result, just as he flew over the Protoss team, Yi Tianzong heard Shin Xuantian's arrogant words, and he was angry. What the F***ck? I was thinking of letting you guys go just now. I didn't expect that a little tramp from the God race would be so arrogant. I'll kill you today no matter what. Although Yi Tianzong could see that Shin Xiantian was not simple at a glance, he also felt that Shin Xuantian's strength was much weaker than his and could not pose a threat. So, Yi Tianzong did not find trouble with the Grey Clan and directly attacked the Protoss below. Chapter 283. Yi Tianzong was already very familiar with sneak attacks. He removed the state of Traceless Void and suddenly came out of the void. With a move of sword-sweeping demons, he immediately killed the 5 God Clan geniuses who were at the peak of the 6th heaven of the God Clan who were unprepared. "Who are you? You're a rogue bastard. How dare you sneak attack my Protoss? Today, I, Shin Xiantian, will make you suffer all kinds of torture." Shin Xiantian was shocked when he was attacked. Then, through the clothes and rumors, he recognized that the person who suddenly attacked him was the rumored Rogue. He was furious. Just now, he had said that he wanted to let the Rogue know the power of Shin Xiantian. As a result, he was attacked by the Rogue in the blink of an eye, and 3 of his fellow disciples died in an instant. These fellow disciples with him were all followers that he had spent a lot of effort to cultivate and win over in the sect. Each of them was an outstanding figure in the same realm. The death of one was a great loss, not to mention the death of 5 of them at once. The behavior of the Rogue was tantamount to slapping Shin Xuantian's face. The Protoss who were with Shin Xiantian reacted quickly. After being attacked, they organized defensive measures. At the same time, 10 6th Heavenly Layer geniuses launched powerful attacks against the Rogue. Powerful attacks with the will of all the Protoss powerhouses seemed to shake the space of the world battlefield. They pressed down on Yi Tianzong with great momentum. After Shin Xiantian roared, he suddenly leaped and instantly came to the sky above the besieged Rogue. Then, he gathered the powerful strength he was proud of and blasted out a divine fist of heaven and earth. Suddenly, an invincible fist print with divine light came down from above. It was like a peerless god waving an invincible fist to kill all the demons and monsters in front of him. The divine fist of heaven and earth was the most powerful killing skill created by a super powerhouse who had reached the late stage of the heavenly master realm in the super supreme Holy Land where Shin Xiantian was located. When using it, one could use one's will to condense the energy of heaven and earth in one's body and the surrounding space, transforming it into a powerful and invincible fist force. It would make the target feel as if they were facing the suppression of heaven and earth. Yi Tianzong, who was in the midst of dealing with the attacks from the surrounding gods, felt a strong killing intent and pressure coming from above his head. His expression turned serious as a vast amount of energy surged within his body. Wielding the boundless god sword, he swung out an endless stream of sword chi that formed into a river of sword chi, blocking the attacks from the gods that came from all directions. Then, he met the gods' attacks with his fist and blasted out a world-suppressing fist. The ferocious and domineering golden world-suppressing fist force contained an invincible fist intent that could suppress the heavens and earth. It clashed directly with Shin Xuantian's heaven and earth divine fist. When the two powerful fist forces with different colored fist intents collided, an unparalleled energy surge erupted. A violent energy ripple spread out in all directions. The surrounding gods who were caught off guard were swept to the ground by the energy ripple. Two fierce and powerful fist forces collided. The final result was that Yi Tianzong's figure was lowered and he swayed a little. Then, he continued to deal with the attacks of the other sixth heaven deity prodigies as if nothing had happened. Although the 100 or so god clan prodigies that were attacking him from all directions were much weaker than the god profound sky that had just attacked him, their combined attacks posed a much greater threat to him than the god profound sky. As for Shin Xiantian, who was attacking Yi Tianzong from above, under the collision of their respective fist forces, Shin Xiantian was sent flying hundreds of feet high by the ferocious and domineering force. The energy in his body was churning incessantly, and his qi and blood were somewhat impeded. In this head-on collision, Shin Xiantian knew that he was at a disadvantage, but he couldn't believe it. How is this possible? I don't believe it. Shin Xuantian's eyes flashed with horror and disbelief. Just now, Yi Tianzong was busy dealing with the joint attacks of nearly 100 of his fellow disciples. Then, he took the heaven and earth divine fist that he was full of confidence in and put him at a disadvantage. In this short confrontation, Yi Tianzong's strength was obviously at least twice as strong as his. This made him, who had always disdained rogues, unable to accept such a cruel reality. Shin Xiantian, who refused to believe it, adjusted the power in his body and directly took out his mysterious sky halberd. He waved the halberd to launch his most powerful attack and attacked Yi Tianzong again. The mysterious sky halberd was refined with the powerful emperor-level divine material celestial crystal spirit or as the main material. Under the wave of Shin Xiantian, an extreme sharpness condensed on the halberd and slashed down at Yi Tianzong. Yi Tianzong felt that the attack was much stronger than the last time. With a thought, the Qianquan force field appeared and covered all the god race powerhouses who attacked him within 1,000 meters. All the god race powerhouses around Yi Tianzong suddenly froze. Then, Yi Tianzong waved the boundless divine sword in an instant and slashed out boundless cold light. More than 100 huge sword lights, with the power to destroy everything in the world, destroyed all the attacks and attacked all the god race powerhouses in all directions. After the attack, Yi Tianzong immediately swung his divine sword at the Xiantian battle halberd that was about to hit him from above. The boundless divine sword and the Xiantian battle halberd collided with each other with extreme power, producing a sonorous, ear-piercing sound of death. Then, a wave of energy ripples that was even stronger and sharper than before rippled out at an extremely fast speed. More than a dozen god race powerhouses around Yi Tianzong had just gotten rid of the influence of the Qianquan force field, when they were swept away by the rapidly rippling energy wave. The powerful and sharp energy waves immediately injured these God race powerhouses and sent them flying back while vomiting blood. Because of the powerful collision, Yi Tianzong was forced to step more than half a foot deep into the ground. The qi and blood in his body stagnated, and his face turned slightly red. However, he recovered in an instant. On the other side, Shun Xiantian was once again sent flying hundreds of meters into the sky with a look of disbelief on his face due to the powerful recoil. As the energy in his body became chaotic, he spat out a mouthful of golden blood. I can't beat him, I still can't beat him. Why is this? The rogue is just a human. How can he be so powerful? Under the joint attack of nearly 100 God race powerhouses at the peak of the 6th heaven of the myth realm, he can still injure me with a backhand blow, and he himself is unscathed. This is absolutely not true. It is impossible for the human race to have such a powerful genius. Not only Shen Xiantian, but all the God race powerhouses who attacked the rogue were shocked to see Shen Xiantian vomiting blood and flying back. If they hadn't experienced it personally, they would not have believed that there was such a powerful genius among the human race. It was simply challenging their bottom line. Even the top 10 supreme geniuses of the myth realm in the greater thousand world of the God race might not be able to take on their joint attacks so easily. But the rogue, a human, did it. This made all of them shocked, and at the same time, an unprecedented strong killing intent rose in their hearts. They must kill the rogue. They must not let him escape. Otherwise, once he grew up, he would be a big problem for the God race. At that time, many of their God race powerhouses would die in his hands. All the God race powerhouses who had made up their minds to kill the rogue once again besieged Yi Tianzong at the same time. After stabilizing the power in his body, Shun Xiantian, who was vomiting blood and flying back, once again waved the Xiantian halberd to attack. The fierce killing intent represented the determination to completely kill the rogue. But this time, before the encirclement of the God race powerhouses was completed, Yi Tianzong took the initiative to attack, no longer passively enduring the siege of the God race powerhouses. Yi Tianzong used the traceless void and instantly disappeared without a trace. Then, when all the God race powerhouses lost their target and were looking around, he suddenly appeared on the other side of the void. Although these God race powerhouses were vigilant, Yi Tianzong's powerful strength still caused the 6 God race powerhouses who were attacked to suffer serious injuries. On the world battlefield, one could only rely on one's own strength, whether it was a variety of powerful cultivation methods, divine abilities, or secret technique. Also, the life source weapons were also within the scope of the cultivator's own strength. But those things such as talismans or forbidden weapons that sealed attacks beyond the cultivator's own strength and realm could never be used, nor could they be used in the world battlefield. But there were exceptions, and that was if the cultivator refined various offensive talismans or forbidden weapons in the world battlefield, they could be used to fight the enemy, but they could not be sold or given to others. As a junior disciple of the Heaven's Expanse Immortal Mansion, Yi Tianzong had to possess skills in alchemy, formation, and weaponry. Therefore, in the world battlefield, Yi Tianzong had also taken the time to use the various materials he had collected to refine many kinds of powerful offensive divine talismans and one-time use forbidden weapons. There was also Yi Tianzong's life source weapon, the Boundless Divine Sword. Yi Tianzong used various emperor-level materials to refine the Boundless Divine Sword, which greatly increased the power and strength of the Boundless Divine Sword. Otherwise, how could it fight with Shun Xuantian's Xiantian halberd head-on? Chapter 284. After Yi Tianzong injured the Divine Race's people with one blow, the Divine Race's people had no time to fight back under the Aurora instantaneous shadow. He instantly disappeared without a trace again, displaying the art of assassination incisively and vividly. After using the traceless void to change direction again, Yi Tianzong suddenly appeared again and seriously injured the 3 Divine Race's sky prides. Then, before the surrounding divine race's experts had time to attack, he quietly hid again. "Damn it, rogue, you despicable and shameless thing, do you only know how to sneak attack like this? You cowardly rat, do you dare to fight with me, Shen Xiantian?" Shen Xiantian gritted his teeth and shouted at the void in all directions. Yi Tianzong turned a deaf ear to Shen Xuantian's curses. After taking out a few divine ice talismans and throwing them at the divine race's people below, Yi Tianzong quickly came to another direction and launched an assassination on the 3 divine race's sky prides who were distracted by the explosion of the divine ice talismans. This time, without the help of other divine race's experts, Yi Tianzong directly killed the 3 divine race's sky prides, waved his hand and put the 3 corpses into his inner world, and then disappeared again. After Yi Tianzong disappeared, all the divine race's sky prides realized that they had been fooled. Suddenly, their hatred and killing intent towards Yi Tianzong skyrocketed to the point that they could not live under the same sky as him. They launched a carpet attack towards the void in all directions, hoping to beat the rogue out. Unfortunately, Yi Tianzong used the Earth escape technique to go underground. After accumulating power underground, he instantly appeared in the middle of all the divine race's sky prides. With the 6th move of the boundless sword technique, Yi Tianzong's myriad swords to ruin countless destructive sword lights erupted at an extreme speed in all directions with Yi Tianzong as the center. Yi Tianzong then took out a handful of divine talismans of black ice and divine talismans of raging flames and threw them around. With a thought, he detonated the divine talismans of black ice and divine talismans of opposite natures. The black ice divine talisman and the raging flame divine talisman each contained Yi Tianzong's attack at his peak. They were very difficult to refine. Yi Tianzong had only refined 50 of them over the years. A total of 10 divine talismans of black ice and divine talismans of raging flames exploded. The destructive power of the opposing forces was no weaker than Yi Tianzong's myriad swords to ruin. Unprepared for Yi Tianzong's attack from the center of the crowd, all the Protoss only had time to hurriedly condense a defensive power around their bodies. Then they were submerged by Yi Tianzong's 2 consecutive destructive attacks. This time, Yi Tianzong's attack directly killed 20 God's clan geniuses at the peak of the 6th heaven of Myth Realm. More than 20 of them were seriously injured. Except for the dozens of God's clan geniuses at the edge, the rest of the God's clan also suffered moderate injuries. Shen Xiantian was at the outermost position and was the most powerful, so he was not injured. However, although he was not injured, he did not have any rejoicing or joy. Instead, he looked at the dead and seriously injured disciples with bloodshot eyes. The killing intent and resentment in his heart for the rogue in blue clothes and holding a divine sword had reached the peak, almost drowning his reason. Fortunately, Shen Xuantian's remaining reason made him immediately crush the emergency divine talisman in his hand. Once the emergency divine talisman was crushed, all the Protoss within a radius of 300,000 miles would receive a distress message in a very short time, and then they would immediately rush to the place where the distress was sent. This kind of emergency divine talisman would only be sent out when the Protoss were in a desperate situation caused by other races. The Protoss would not use the emergency divine talisman in an internal battle. Just when Shen Xiantian crushed the emergency divine talisman, all the Protoss within a radius of 300,000 miles received the distress message within 5 seconds. What's going on? They actually sent out an emergency divine talisman. Who forced our Protoss to do this? Humph! Everyone, gather and set off. A middle-stage Divine King Realm Protoss powerhouse, who was 100,000 miles away from Shen Xiantian and others, after receiving the emergency divine talisman, thought for a moment, and then gathered the mythical 6th Heaven Protoss members under his jurisdiction and rushed towards the place where Shen Xiantian and others were. At the same time, such a scene appeared in all the Protoss teams with more than 30 people within a radius of 300,000 miles. and the Protoss members who were 100,000 miles away from Shin Xiantian and others. In order to hurry, the Divine King Realm powerhouses directly moved out and rushed towards the location of Shin Xiantian and others at an extremely fast speed. The closest to the place where Shin Xiantian and others fought with Yi Tianzong was a 100-man team 1,000 miles away. When the Protoss powerhouses within a radius of 300,000 miles came to support, Shin Xiantian looked at the rogue who was slaughtering his fellow disciples with blood-red eyes and roared, "Kill! No matter what price we have to pay, we must delay the damn rogue. We must not let him escape. Our support is almost here." Shin Xiantian was full of killing intent. After shouting angrily, he directly waved the heaven and earth divine fist, and attacked Yi Tianzong who was slaughtering his companions. After Yi Tianzong shouted in Shin Xiantian, he realized that he had to leave the battlefield as soon as possible. This was because he had once ambushed a few God Race disciples who were alone, and during the process of searching their souls, he knew that the God Race had an emergency method to call for help when they were forced into a desperate situation by other races. And from Shen Xuantian's words just now, Yi Tianzong knew that he had used this emergency rescue method. Therefore, Yi Tianzong realized that he had to make a choice. Should he continue to kill these Protoss or leave the battlefield as soon as possible? After thinking for a while, Yi Tianzong made a decision and left immediately. He was alone and weak. He definitely could not compete with the Protoss in terms of numbers and endless support. Once he was entangled, he would fall into a desperate situation. Therefore, after Yi Tianzong killed a seriously injured Protoss with a sword, he flew straight into the sky and left the battlefield. Then, he turned back and said to Shin Xiantian, "I just found trouble with your Protoss 2 days ago. Today, I was going to find trouble with the Heaven Clan. When I saw you, I wanted to let you go. In the end, you, a rookie, actually dared to talk nonsense and want to suppress me. Dream on. I know you have reinforcements coming soon, but I won't accompany you. However, I will remember you. If I meet you in the future, I will definitely find trouble with you." After Yi Tianzong finished speaking, he used the traceless void body and disappeared into the void. "You!" Shin Xiantian spat out a mouthful of golden blood in anger. He stared hatefully at the place where Yi Tianzong disappeared. The hatred in his heart for Yi Tianzong seemed to be able to burn the sky. At the same time, he regretted his previous boasting. After Yi Tianzong quickly left the battlefield, he immediately used the Earth escape technique and burrowed 2 li underground. Then, he left into the distance. Not long after Yi Tianzong left, 100 Protoss team appeared at the location of Shin Xiantian and the others. Looking at Shin Xiantian and the others who were all injured and had less than 30 people left, a Protoss with an abnormally strong aura, who was almost on par with Shin Xiantian at his peak, asked Shin Xiantian, "What's going on? Where's the enemy?" Shin Xiantian looked at the person in front of him in a daze and replied miserably, "More than half of my subordinates and I were killed by the Wanderers. He knew that you came to support and just escape." Chapter 285. The weather was really cold, -8 degrees Celsius, and his hands were so cold that he didn't want to write anymore. "What? You're saying that you were all defeated by the rogue alone, and more than half of you were killed? Shin Xiantian, are you sure you're not joking?" The Protoss prodigy who asked Shin Xiantian asked in shock. Shin Xiantian said sadly, "Oh, do you think I need to deceive you in my current situation?" Shin Xiantian paused, took a deep breath, and continued, "Shin Yuantian, although you and I are not from the same sect, and we are competitors, and our strength is almost the same as mine, do you think I, Shin Xiantian, am the kind of person who finds excuses for his failure? You know the strength of me and the 100 people under my command. But can you imagine that a rogue of the same realm as me could still injure me in one move while taking the joint attack of my 100 subordinates? The true strength of the rogue is at least 2 or 3 times stronger than me, and this rogue is also elusive and proficient in assassination. Otherwise, my subordinates and I wouldn't have suffered such heavy losses. This rogue must be a huge threat to our Protoss race in the future, and we must get rid of him as soon as possible." After listening to Shen Xuantian's words, Shen Yuantian's expression also became very serious and ugly. He was almost on par with Shen Xiantian. Among the geniuses of the Great Thousand World, they were only one rank apart. Therefore, he knew Shen Xiantian very well. He knew that Shen Xiantian was not a person who could not afford to lose, and would not speak carelessly. Therefore, he did not care about the rogue, who had killed Shen Xiantian and the others, and raised the threat level to the highest level. In order to prevent the rogue from coming back again, Shen Yuantian led his team of 100 subordinates and didn't leave. They had been guarding Shen Xiantian and others not far away to recover from their injuries, waiting for the arrival of other Protoss powerhouses. They must pass on the information of the rogue to other Protoss forces and list the rogue as the primary target of the Protoss race. Little did he know that Shen Yuantian's decision was really a stroke of luck. Yi Tianzong really turned back and quietly watched from afar. After feeling that there was really no chance to wipe out Shen Xiantian and the rest, he left. This time, he really left. After leaving, Yi Tianzong was still thinking about what had just happened. It seemed that it was not without reason that the immortal race could rank in the top 3 among the 10 superworlds with less than 1% of the human race in terms of overall strength. At least the immortal race was relatively united when facing other races. For example, this kind of emergency call for help could not be realized in the human race. In a desperate situation, Shen Xiantian used an emergency call for help. In less than a minute, there were God race teams from different forces that came to help. In order to prevent Yi Tianzong from suddenly turning back, they even protected Shen Xiantian and the others from healing. Would you believe such a situation in the human race? Yi Tianzong didn't deny that there must be some righteous forces in the human clan. When the human clan's talents from other forces were in danger, they would help them. However, such examples were too rare. Yi Tianzong had only encountered 2 supreme forces, the Ethereal Divine Sect and the Ancient Azure Mysterious Sect, which were once in the second layer of the world battlefield. In the hundreds of years of Yi Tianzong's career in the world battlefield, the other supreme forces did not lend a helping hand when Yi Tianzong was in danger. On the contrary, they wished that Yi Tianzong would be annihilated as soon as possible to reduce the threat to them in the future. From a glimpse of the whole picture, one could see how fierce the internal strife was in the human world. The degree of unity was completely incomparable to that of the Protoss. Otherwise, with the human race outnumbering the Protoss by at least 100 times, how could they be at a disadvantage when facing the Protoss? The purpose of Yi Tianzong developing the Hao Ranjun sect in the profound spirit world and writing the Haoran Sutra was to increase the power and status in his hands, to a greater extent to influence the human race in the profound spirit world, to change the ideals of some human race warriors, and to control the overall situation of the human race. He did not want the various forces of the human race to be in endless internal strife. If necessary, Yi Tianzong did not mind using bloody means to unify the Central Plains and the Southern Wasteland. Yi Tianzong sighed, and then left the area far away. After Yi Tianzong left, the divine kings of the Protoss came to the location of Shen Xiantian and the others one after another. After asking about what had happened, and considering the trouble that the Wanderers had brought to the Protoss for so many years, all the Protoss immediately reached a consensus to list the Wanderers as the common enemy of the Protoss, and issued an infinite pursuit order to kill the Wanderers. The Protoss were so unyielding. The hatred between the Grey race and the Wanderers was not inferior to that of the Protoss. Therefore, after receiving the message from the Protoss, the Grey race also issued an infinite pursuit order to kill the Wanderers, after a discussion, and also fought the Wanderers to death. In just 7 days, the Wanderers became completely famous within a radius of tens of billions of miles, and it was a hot mess. All the races and forces in the 10 colossal worlds within a radius of tens of billions of miles knew about it. The Protoss and the Grey Race issued an infinite pursuit order to kill the Wanderers, and they wanted to fight the Wanderers to death. What kind of hatred was this? A human who was only at the 6th heaven of the mythical realm, and he was alone, could make the Grey Race and the Protoss, the two overlords of the colossal worlds, pursue him at all costs. This was simply unheard of. After the supreme forces of the other 8 races, including the human race, the Phoenix race, the demon race, and so on, found out the inside story one after another, they could not help but praise in their hearts, "The Wanderers are really a monster." He was comparable to or even better than the Protoss in the top 10 of the 6th heaven of the mythical realm in the colossal world. Although he had interacted with all the races and forces for so many years, it was obvious that the Wanderers had been fighting with the Protoss and the Grey Race. There must be an irreconcilable hatred in this. Once the Wanderers continued to grow, they would definitely cause more trouble to the Protoss and the Grey Race. If it were them, they would definitely kill the Wanderers, and they would definitely fight to the death. After the other races and forces figured out the reason for the matter, they were gloating over the misfortune of the Protoss and the Grey Race, and they also increased the arrest of the Wanderers for the first time. Although the supreme prodigy like the Wanderers was only fighting with the Protoss and the Grey Race at present, they could not guarantee that one day they would fight to the death with other races and forces. It was better to eliminate this kind of uncontrollable, unstable factor as soon as possible. Moreover, the Wanderers could reach such a level alone as a human. There must be a big secret in him. As long as they got the secret of the Wanderers, they might be able to make their own prodigies go further. Almost all the races and forces, even the human forces, did not want the Wanderers to continue to grow. With the idea that all variables should be eliminated, in addition to the Protoss and the Grey Race who issued an unlimited pursuit order on the surface to hunt down and kill the Wanderers wantonly, the other races and forces also secretly increased the arrest of the Wanderers. It was just that they did not issue a pursuit order like the Protoss and the Grey Race, and still maintained a layer of cover. After Yi Tianzong learned that the Protoss and the Grey Race had issued an unlimited pursuit order on him, although he knew that there would definitely be other races and forces that would take advantage of the situation to hunt him down, he underestimated the bottom line of the major races and forces. Whether it was the Emperor-level forces or the Supreme-level forces, they all carried out a crazy and intensive pursuit of Yi Tianzong. Knowing that the Wanderers were powerful and had many means, the teams of the Emperor-level forces and Supreme-level forces that felt uncertain at least joined forces in 2s and 3s. Led by the Divine King powerhouses, they formed a team of at least 1,000 people and carefully searched every place within tens of billions of miles. Chapter 286. Yi Tianzong, who did not have enough time to escape, was besieged and chased by countless forces from all directions in a short period of time. Yi Tianzong struggled to survive in the process of bloody battles and constant pursuit every day. Yi Tianzong had been constantly fighting and fleeing for 2 years. During these 2 years, Yi Tianzong did not relax for a single day. He spent it in difficult bloody battles and being chased. He had experienced too many desperate situations. If his will was not strong enough and he had enough resources, he would not have been able to survive. Yi Tianzong's body was filled with a strong murderous intent and bloody aura because he had experienced too many killings and battles. Because he was in a state of battle almost all the time, Yi Tianzong could not leave the world battlefield. Therefore, he could only rely on his own strength and various means to resist the pursuit of countless forces with difficulty. Fortunately, he had the Traceless Void, a secret method that could merge with the void and eliminate aura, as well as the Earth Escape technique, which allowed Yi Tianzong to have a chance to catch his breath during the process of being chased. Yi Tianzong hid underground and looked at the black ice divine talisman left in his storage ring. He had already consumed more than 3 million yuan crystals. He hated the forces that were chasing him to the extreme. He made a blood oath that when he got rid of the pursuit, he would make all the forces that had chased him pay the price. Especially those emperor-level and supreme-level forces of the human race. Even though Yi Tianzong was mentally prepared in advance and knew that some forces of the human race would not let him go. However, he absolutely did not expect that the forces of the human race would chase him so crazily. They were even crazier and more ruthless than the God race and the Heaven race. This was really unacceptable to him. At the same time, Yi Tianzong also made up his mind that when he became strong in the future, he would wash the human race's great thousand world with blood and completely wipe out those malignant tumors that only knew how to fight and scheme. Yi Tianzong carefully checked his body again. After finding that there were no other marks except for the 3 marks in his spirit, Yi Tianzong breathed a sigh of relief. The 3 imprints in his soul had been planted by the God King experts of the human clan, the God clan, and the Heaven clan when Yi Tianzong was busy fighting. It was because of these 3 imprints that Yi Tianzong had been discovered time and time again and had been on the run. If not for the fact that Yi Tianzong's Aurora Blink Shadow was fast enough and that he had a large amount of origin crystals to use without regard for consumption, he would have been caught up by the God King experts long ago. Fortunately, Yi Tianzong had finally escaped to the place where he cultivated the 9 refinements of Nirvana's secret technique. Then, he used the Earth Escape technique to directly escape to a depth of 1 kilometer underground. After that, he went through the underground tunnel to a depth of 100 kilometers underground. During the process of diving down, Yi Tianzong didn't care about the cost of using his divine ability to erase the underground tunnel behind him. A depth of 100 kilometers underground was enough to shield those God King experts from sensing the imprints. After thinking that it was safe, Yi Tianzong finally relaxed, and then fell asleep directly. When Yi Tianzong was sleeping, those God King experts who tracked Yi Tianzong by sensing the imprints suddenly stopped in surprise. In the senses of the human clan, the God clan, and the Heaven clan, the soul imprints they planted disappeared at once. To be precise, they were blocked. This situation made them a little hesitant. It should be known that the 3 of them were all God King late-stage existences. There were only 3 situations that could block the soul imprints they planted. One was that there was an existence equal to or stronger than them. The other was that the rogue entered a special place and blocked their senses. As for the third possibility, which was the most unlikely, it was that the rogue used a special treasure to shield their divine soul imprint. They directly ignored the third situation. If the rogue had such a treasure, he would have used it long ago. How could he be forced into a desperate situation by them? The first situation was also unlikely. It was the consensus of all forces that the rogue was alone. If the rogue had a master, why didn't they come out to support the rogue earlier and let the rogue experience so many life and death crises? Most of the Emperor-level forces and Supreme-level forces within tens of billions of miles had joined the hunt for the rogues. Even if the rogues had Supreme-level forces behind them, so what? Would they dare to go against so many forces? What's more, the God Kings of the human clan, the God clan, and the Heaven clan could feel that the imprints they planted had not been erased. If it was the master of Yi Tianzong, how could they still leave their imprints? In this way, the only possibility was that the rogue had entered a special place and blocked their senses. The God Kings of the human clan, the God clan, and the Heaven clan led their men to the place where the imprints disappeared. After trying several more times, they still could not sense the soul imprint. After finding nothing in the surrounding void, the faces of the 3 God Kings turned gloomy. After looking at each other with hostility and vigilance, the God Kings of the human clan, the God clan, and the Heaven clan each retreated 1,000 miles, and then led their men to camp on the spot. It seemed that they planned to wait for a long time until the rogue came out of that special place. If they did not completely destroy the rogue, none of them would feel at ease. While they stayed and waited, other sovereign forces came here one after another and also waited here. Just as more and more overlord forces and sovereign forces gathered, Yi Tianzong, who was deeply asleep 100 miles underground, slept for 3 days and 3 nights before waking up. The moment Yi Tianzong woke up, he suddenly became alert by conditioned reflex. His whole body was tense, and he was always in an attacking state. It was not until he realized where he was that he relaxed. Yi Tianzong, who had calmed down, breathed a long sigh of relief, and then began to mobilize his soul power to obliterate the 3 imprints in his soul one by one. The 3 imprints in Yi Tianzong's soul were planted by a God King expert. Yi Tianzong's soul had already reached the level of a God King due to various fortuitous encounters and the secret techniques he cultivated. Thus, he was completely capable of erasing the 3 imprints in his soul. He only needed to spend some time. Before, Yi Tianzong had been in the process of bloody battles and being hunted down, so there was no time for him to solve the hidden dangers. Now that he was 100 miles underground, and no one could find him, Yi Tianzong naturally had to get rid of the imprints on his body first. After spending a month, Yi Tianzong finally completely obliterated the 3 soul imprints, and there were no more tracking imprints on his body. Just as Yi Tianzong erased the 3 soul imprints, the 3 godly kings of the human clan, the Protoss clan, and the Grey clan on the ground vaguely sensed that the soul imprints they left on the rogue were erased. The erasing of the soul imprints meant that they would no longer be able to directly track the rogue in the future. They could only return to the previous method of carpet searching, which made the 3 God Kings very unhappy. On the other hand, 100 miles underground, Yi Tianzong did not plan to go out immediately after obliterating the 3 soul imprints and using Yuanjing to completely recover to his peak state. He knew that there must be many major races and forces gathered above him at this moment. In this case, he could not guarantee that no one would find him. Moreover, after experiencing so many things, Yi Tianzong also wanted to go back and see his family. Now that he was out of combat, Yi Tianzong left the world battlefield with a thought. When light returned to his eyes again, Yi Tianzong had returned to the colorful barrier of the world battlefield. Yi Tianzong did not stop and directly returned to the outer cultivation area of the Immortal Mansion, and saw Ling Xinyue and Shen Yu who were cultivating there. Yi Tianzong, who could be said to have survived a disaster, saw his beloved woman again, and could no longer hold back the passion and longing in his heart. Together with Ling Xinyue and Shen Yu, who were also longing and worried, he had a good time in the Immortal Mansion for 2 months. This time, Yi Tianzong decided to relax for a period of time. In any case, at the world battlefield, the major forces gathered there would not leave in a short period of time. Yi Tianzong might as well stay in the profound spirit world for a few decades to ease the tension of being in a state of combat all these years. After spending some time with Ling Xinyue and Shen Yu, Yi Tianzong walked out of the Immortal Mansion and went to see his parents, grandfather, uncle, and others. Since the beginning of the expansion and recovery of the world, Yi Tianzong had not gathered together with his parents, grandfather, and others to have a good chat for a long time. Yi Tianzong had a relaxed expression as he chatted with Yi Haoran, Su Mingxin, Yi Yuanshan, and the others. From time to time, he would talk about some of the secrets of the myriad worlds. Yi Haoran and the others also noticed the changes in Yi Tianzong. Following the rise of Yi Tianzong and their cultivation realms, it had been a long time since they had such a relaxed and happy interaction with each other. It was as if there was an invisible barrier between them. Now Yi Tianzong was like a child, chatting with them easily, talking and laughing. This made Yi Haoran, Su Mingxin, Yi Yuanshan, and the others feel very surprised and happy. The unfamiliarity between them also gradually disappeared. Other than communicating with his family, Yi Tianzong also frequently appeared between the 7 peaks of the Hao Ranjin sect, familiarizing himself with the development of the Hao Ranjin sect, meeting the disciples of the Hao Ranjin sect, and even explaining the mysteries of martial arts cultivation to the disciples of the Hao Ranjin sect, answering the doubts they encountered during cultivation, encouraging the disciples of the Hao Ranjin sect, and so on. In this kind of relaxed and warm life, Yi Tianzong did not realize that his spiritual cultivation was slowly but surely growing and was advancing towards the peak of the Heart Sea realm. Chapter 287. Yi Tianzong stayed in the profound spirit world for 30 years. During these 30 years, because Yi Tianzong often explained the way of cultivation to the elites of the Hao Ranjin sect and answered their questions, all the martial artists below the myth realm in the Hao Ranjin sect improved rapidly. In the past 30 years, the number of myth realm elites in the Hao Ranjin sect only increased by about 10 people. The number of myth realm elites seemed to have reached a bottleneck. However, the number of myth realm elites did not increase, but the quality of these myth realm elites had greatly increased. Yi Tianzong placed a total of 108 lesser divine abilities in the scripture library of the Hao Ranjin sect. Some of these 108 lesser divine abilities were exchanged by Yi Tianzong in Black Heaven sect using his contribution points, some were created by Yi Tianzong himself, 3 were obtained from the inheritance of the Immortal Mansion, and the last were the spoils of war that Yi Tianzong obtained from the many years of life and death battles in the world battlefield. Yi Tianzong had a lot of lesser divine abilities, at least 500 of them. However, the 108 lesser divine abilities that Yi Tianzong placed in the scripture library were carefully selected from the 500 or so lesser divine abilities. They were more suitable for the myth realm elites of the Hao Ranjin sect to cultivate. At the same time, they were lesser divine abilities that were more mysterious and powerful. Based on the number and quality of the lesser divine abilities alone, Yi Tianzong was confident that they were not much weaker than any God-King level sect in the greater thousand worlds of the human race. Besides that, while Yi Tianzong placed many lesser divine abilities in the scripture library, he also used a large Grotto Heaven secret realm as the foundation based on his experience in the world battlefield. He used more than half of the materials and resources of the Hao Ranjin sect and combined them with his own collection. He transformed the large Grotto Heaven secret realm, which had a space of 100,000 miles, into a trial space for myth realm elites to unleash their full strength. In order to transform this trial space, Yi Tianzong spent more than 13 million origin crystals, various God-King level materials, Emperor level materials, and other resources. He also used various reinforcement formations, defensive formations, spatial formations, spirit-gathering formations, concealing formations, freezing formations, and so on. Yi Tianzong forcibly transformed a large Grotto Heaven secret realm that was only 100,000 miles into a trial space with a radius of 1 million miles. It was a trial space that could withstand 20 of him, unleashing his full strength. In this trial space, Yi Tianzong divided the trial space into 3 levels according to the distribution of the world battlefield. He placed the human race, demon race, dragon race, and other races from the 10 boundless worlds that he had encountered in the world battlefield in the form of mirror images in the trial space. The strength of these mirror images was at most half of the original strength of the original living beings. After Yi Tianzong finished setting up the trial space, he announced that all Hao Ranjin sect's myth realm elites could enter the trial space to train themselves after paying merit points. Yi Tianzong's purpose in doing this was to continue increasing the strength of the Hao Ranjin sect, so that the sect's myth realm elites would not have nothing to do and become arrogant. Another reason was to prepare for the future battle with the Abyss Devil race. Yi Tianzong had never forgotten about the Abyss Devil race. Although the Abyss Devil race had been defeated one after another, and could only struggle at death's door in the western region, as long as the so-called Wushang Devil Lord of the Abyss Devil race still existed, the Abyss Devil race could quickly recover their strength and grow stronger. In the end, they would still be a great threat to all living beings in the profound spirit world. After entering the trial space set up by Yi Tianzong, all the Hao Ranjin sect's myth realm elites were dealt a terrible blow. Even Yi Haoran, Yi Haoyun, and the others were dealt a terrible blow. However, Yi Tianzong, Ling Xinyue, and Shen Yu easily passed all the trials in the trial space, so all the myth realm elites could only sullenly admit that they were too weak. This was because Yi Tianzong had said that the creatures in the trial space were all mirror images of the real living beings, and their strength was at most 50%. If they could not even defeat these mirror images, then in the future, when they entered the Great Thousand World, it would be difficult for them to move an inch. As for the matter of entering the Great Thousand World after the profound spirit world recovered to its peak, Yi Tianzong had also mentioned it to these Hao Ranjin sect's myth realm elite. Therefore, after knowing that the strength they were so proud of was so weak, all the myth realm elites who were ambitious to reach a higher realm and have a better future were once again filled with the firm fighting spirit they had when they first entered the path of martial arts. Under Yi Tianzong's control, the entire Hao Ranjin sect was moving quickly and firmly in the direction of becoming stronger. In addition to developing the Hao Ranjin sect, Yi Tianzong also brought Ling Xinyue and Shen Yu to every corner of the profound spirit world in the past 30 years. They traveled to the mountains and rivers of the central plains, saw the lush forests of the southern wasteland, went to the supreme heavenly mountain of the northern frontier, stepped into the holy land of Tianzhu in the western regions, and witnessed the magnificent waves of the endless sea. In short, Yi Tianzong finally realized the idea that he had wanted to visit the profound spirit world before but had not completed it. After 30 years, Yi Tianzong finally ended this warm and relaxed state of life. At this time, his spiritual realm had reached the peak of the Sea of Heart realm. As long as there was an opportunity, he could break through to the next realm, the profound heart realm. As for the breakthrough and cultivation method of the profound heart realm, Yi Tianzong had also finished deducing it in the past hundreds of years. After returning to Tiangang Peak, Yi Tianzong once again announced that he would go into seclusion. After entering the immortal mansion, Yi Tianzong bid farewell to Ling Xinyue and Shen Yu, and then resolutely came to the colorful barrier to enter the world battlefield again. 30 years in the profound spirit world, 3 years had passed in the world battlefield. Presumably, many of the major forces who were chasing after the wanderers should have left. After a moment, which seemed like a long time of trance, Yi Tianzong recovered his mind again and came to the deep space of 100 miles underground where he had left before. At this time, on the ground where Yi Tianzong was located, 3 years had passed, but there was still no news or trace of the wanderers, which made all the forces wonder if the wanderers had died in that special place. After all, according to their understanding of the wanderers would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. If the wanderers safely escaped from their encirclement, then it was impossible for them to be so quiet. They would definitely retaliate against the forces that had chased them before. Either the wanderers had been trapped in a special place and could not get out, or the wanderers were seriously injured and had been healing, etc. Anyway, all the forces that were chasing after the wanderers had made various guesses. But as Yi Tianzong thought, there was no news of the wanderers. Even if it was not confirmed that the wanderers were dead, most of the major forces that were chasing after the wanderers had retreated. After all, no matter which force it was, they had their own things to do in the world battlefield, and it was impossible to spend all their time chasing after the wanderers. Those forces that did not retreat only sent a team of varying numbers to monitor the situation here. Even the Protoss and the Grey, the two races that had been fighting against the rogues, only left 100 people here to wait for the result. Yi Tianzong used the Earth escape technique to go from a place 2 miles underground, away from the area where the people of the major forces were stationed. After coming to the surface, he used the traceless void body to silently come to the area where the people who were chasing after him were stationed. Looking at everyone below, Yi Tianzong showed a cold and ruthless smile. Next, you will bear the revenge from the wanderers. Chapter 288. Yi Tianzong didn't attack the people of the major forces stationed below. Instead, he left this area and came to a place 100,000 miles away. Yi Tianzong had been maintaining a state of nothingness, searching for his target on the world battlefield. This time, Yi Tianzong didn't target the forces of the divine race and the heaven race. His main target for revenge was the human forces who had been chasing after him. Yi Tianzong's hatred for the human clan was even greater than the God clan and the heaven clan. They belonged to different races. The divine race and the heaven race had been chasing after him. This was a war between races. Even though Yi Tianzong hated them, he couldn't find any reason for them to do so. However, as a human, Yi Tianzong didn't expect the human forces to help him when he was being hunted by other races. Yi Tianzong felt that it was normal for some forces to attack him. However, Yi Tianzong didn't expect that most of the human emperor-level and supreme-level forces within tens of billions of miles would be chasing after him. They were even crazier and more ruthless than the divine race and the heaven race. Did these human forces hate the human race more than the other races? Yi Tianzong couldn't figure it out. However, since he couldn't figure it out, Yi Tianzong stopped thinking about it. Now, in Yi Tianzong's heart, his hatred for the divine race and the heaven race had all been pushed to the back of his mind. As for those human forces who were chasing after him, Yi Tianzong's only thought was to take revenge on them. Since you hate me more than the other races, I'll do as you wish. I'll make you hate me more. Yi Tianzong was like a patient hunter. He hid all his traces and constantly wandered around the world battlefield, collecting information about the strongholds of those human forces bit by bit. After 10 years, Yi Tianzong finally obtained all the information he wanted through various means. He also prepared a large number of offensive divine talismans, forbidden weapons, and some formation discs. After obtaining the information he wanted, Yi Tianzong returned to the place where he had been hiding to avoid being hunted. Yi Tianzong's eyes flashed with coldness as he looked at the less than 500 people of various races and forces. Then, he took out a ball of light that was flashing with strange colors from his storage ring. This glowing ball was an extremely powerful and poisonous god-falling smoke that Yi Tianzong had refined according to the inheritance he had received from the immortal mansion. The god-falling smoke had a very powerful destructive and poisonous power. It could ignore the power of laws and dissolve the soul of cultivators. It had a miraculous effect on cultivators below the divine king realm. Divine kings had already condensed a trace of the origin of laws. Therefore, although the god-falling smoke could still cause great harm to divine kings, it couldn't pose a fatal threat to them. The reason why Yi Tianzong was able to refine the god-falling smoke was because of the countless spoils he had obtained from the world battlefield. He had enough materials to refine the god-falling smoke. Yi Tianzong looked at the god-perishing smoke in his hand, then threw it at the people of the major forces below. The colorful ball of light wrapped around the god-perishing smoke fell at an extremely fast speed. The people of the various clans and forces who were still guarding the place immediately reacted when they saw the light coming towards them. Immediately, several dozen people launched attacks one after another, blowing up the colorful ball of light with the god-falling smoke. The moment the colorful ball of light exploded, the god-falling smoke that flickered with a strange and dangerous light rapidly expanded to a radius of 100 kilometers. In a single moment, everyone on the ground was enveloped by the god-falling smoke. All the people who were stationed here were the quick-witted ones among the major forces. When they were enveloped by the god-perishing smoke, they felt something was wrong and promptly crushed the distressed talisman. However, that was all they could do. Everyone's spirit was completely melted by the god-perishing smoke in the blink of an eye. Yi Tianzong looked at the corpses on the ground and directly wrote a few lines in the air. Afterwards, he concealed himself and left the region without even looking back. In less than 15 minutes after Yi Tianzong left, god kings from various organizations arrived one after another. When they saw the corpses on the ground and the lines of words that were filled with killing intent in the air, most of the God King's faces sank as well as a strange sneer. On the other hand, all the human God King's faces became very ugly. Divine Devil Palace, Yuan Tian Sect, Supreme Sect, you scum forces, we are all from the human race. I, Wanderer, have never had any grudges with you. However, you hate me, a human race, more than other races. Since that is the case, as you wish, I will make you hate me even more. I, Wanderer, swear on my life that as long as I am alive, I will never rest until I am dead. Looking at the lines left by Wanderer in the air, the God Kings of the divine race sneered at the human God Kings without any scruples. Hee. If the Protoss had a supreme prodigy like the rogue, we wouldn't have time to protect him. How could we be like you humans, who can't wait to destroy the rogue? It seems that it's just as the rogue said. As fellow Protoss, you hate him more than outsiders like us. TSK. This is really an eye-opener for me, ha ha ha. After ridiculing the human God Kings with disdain, the God Kings of the divine race turned around and left without caring about the ugly faces of the human God Kings. After the God Kings of the divine race finished speaking, the other God Kings of the Phoenix race, the Heaven race, the Demon race, the Dragon race, and the other 8 races also sneered disdainfully, then turned around and left. Only a few dozen God Kings of the supreme forces of the human race were left. They looked at the lines of words in the air with angry and cold eyes, then looked at each other and left without saying a word. The news that Wanderer did not die and had reappeared, and would take bloody revenge on the human forces that had once hunted him spread across tens of billions of miles in just a month. All the forces that had heard the news had different reactions, but the forces of the other 9 races, except the human race, were all gloating and waiting for a good show. As for the various human forces within tens of billions of miles, except for a small number of forces that did not participate in the hunt of Wanderer and maintained a wait-and-see attitude, all the other forces strengthened the defensive strength and vigilance of their respective strongholds, reducing the number of opportunities to go out. But these were not difficult for Yi Tianzong. Yi Tianzong began to take revenge on the Emperor-level forces. Since the people of the major forces did not come out, they had to come out. Yi Tianzong's first revenge was on an Emperor-level force called the Ancient Moon Sect. He directly investigated the resource load that the Ancient Moon Sect had discovered and occupied in the world battlefield. Through the special characteristics of the Traceless Void, he quietly sneaked in and killed all the people mining the resources here. He deliberately left one person to send a distress signal, and then plundered the Emperor-level divine material resources that had been mined by the Ancient Moon Sect. By the time the Guyu Sect's disciples received the distress signal and rushed over, Yi Tianzong used the various array discs and offensive divine talismans he had prepared over the years to kill all the Guyu Sect's disciples who came to help. Chapter 289. I'm sorry, my friends. There were too many people at home today and the weather was cold. I really couldn't find the time, so I posted it a little late. After killing the people sent by the Guyu Sect as reinforcements, Yi Tianzong collected the spoils of war, and then went to the stronghold of the next Emperor-level force. It was unrealistic to completely destroy the people of the Guyu Sect, and Yi Tianzong didn't want to spend so much energy to do so, as the loss would outweigh the gain. Therefore, he adopted the method of harvesting leaks, intending to kill the people of these forces one by one. When he came to the next Spirit Baron sect, Yi Tianzong also attacked the resource lode occupied by the Spirit Baron sect. After killing the people of the Spirit Baron sect and plundering a batch of resources, he also eliminated the disciples of the Spirit Baron sect who came to support. Devil Cloud sect, Heavenly Cloud sect, Xian Mingshan. In the next 100 years, Yi Tianzong carried out bloody revenge on the Emperor-level and Supreme-level forces that had hunted him down one after another. Yi Tianzong visited every sect force at least twice, greatly reducing the strength of each force on the world battlefield, and at the same time plundering a large number of precious resources. because Yi Tianzong was very careful to hide his tracks, and at the same time, he didn't have the time and choice to take revenge on those human forces. Therefore, although he encountered many crises, Yi Tianzong still relied on caution and sufficient preparation to escape from danger, and also killed a large number of enemies. Yi Tianzong's bloody revenge on the human forces that had hunted him down not only made those human forces fly into a rage and gnash their teeth in hatred, but also made those human forces who were watching from the sidelines gloat. They were also deeply grateful that they didn't follow the trend to hunt down the rogues. Looking at the forces that had hunted down the rogues now, in the past 100 years, they had been stirred up by the rogues and suffered heavy losses. It was clear how correct and wise their decision was. As for the forces of the 9 races except for the human race, they were purely gloating and watching a good show. Among the 10 worlds, the human race had the largest population, at least twice as many as the dragon race, which was good at reproduction. In addition, the human race cultivated at a very fast speed, and its overall strength was undoubtedly the strongest among the 10 major worlds. Therefore, other than the human race, the other 9 races were wary of the human race. As long as they faced the human race, they would work together to suppress them. However, the human race was particularly fond of internal strife and was in a state of disunity. This also caused the human race to be somewhat weak when facing the other 9 races. In fact, to be honest, when they were hunting down the rogues, the crazy attitude of the major human forces towards the rogues also surprised the Divine Sky Clan and the other forces of the 9 major races. Even after so many years of dealing with the rogues, they really couldn't understand why these human forces were so crazy. Now that they saw the rogues, who used to give them a headache, fighting to the death with those human forces, the Protoss, the Grey Clan, and the other 9 races were happy, but they also made corresponding precautions, guarding against the rogues suddenly changing their minds one day and turning around to continue to entangle with them. Yi Tianzong temporarily stopped his revenge after 100 years of continuous revenge, and then disappeared without a trace. At first, the human forces who suffered the revenge of the rogues didn't dare to act rashly. After all, the rogues were too cautious and cunning. As long as a Divine King Powerhouse appeared, they would never provoke him. But once the Divine King Powerhouse didn't appear, the rogues would use all kinds of sneak attacks, which really left a psychological shadow on them. After 10 years, there was no trace of the rogues. At this time, most of the human forces breathed a sigh of relief. Although they didn't know why the rogues disappeared, it was always a good thing. God knows how heavy the losses of their Emperor-level and Supreme-level forces were because of the revenge of the rogues over the years. He was a lone wanderer at the 6th level of Myth Realm, and he had actually caused many Emperor-level and Paragon forces to be helpless against him, and they had even suffered great losses. Who would believe this kind of thing, but it happened. Although he took advantage of the rules of the world battlefield, the people of the major forces were embarrassed to admit these reasons. How could they admit it? There were so many forces, so many disciples of the same level, and even Divine King powerhouses. They couldn't even defeat a lone 6th heavenly layer Myth Realm rogue, and they still had the face to say that he took advantage of the rules. Wouldn't it be over if they just said that they were useless? Moreover, these major forces who were retaliated against by Yi Tianzong really couldn't bring themselves to ask the great emperors to deal with the rogues. Those great emperors also cared about their reputation. As long as they were not shameless great emperors, they would basically ignore such a shameful thing. Moreover, they came to the world battlefield. If they caught the rogues, not only would they not gain any benefits, but they would also be ridiculed by other races for being shameless and bullying the weak. At that time, they would get into trouble. But if they couldn't catch the rogues, it would be a big joke. Their reputation would be ruined, and they would be so ashamed that they would want to bang their heads against the wall. Therefore, all the human forces who were retaliated against by the rogues could only grit their teeth and swallow it. They could only blame themselves for provoking the rogues because of their greed. However, the hatred of these forces for the rogues was increasing day by day. As long as there was a chance, they would not let the rogues go. On the other side, Yi Tianzong suddenly stopped retaliating against the human forces who had hunted him and disappeared for 10 years. After 100 years of searching, Yi Tianzong finally collected all the resources and treasures needed to practice the 9th refining of the 9 refining nirvana. Yi Tianzong once again opened up a passage to 100 miles underground in a secret place in the world battlefield. After spending 3 years, Yi Tianzong finally completed the last refining of the 9 refining nirvana secret method. After completing all the 9 refining nirvana, Yi Tianzong seemed to have unlocked a shackle. His divine body, divine yuan and divine soul all strengthened by leaps and bounds, reaching the level equivalent to the peak of the mid-divine king realm. Yi Tianzong's overall strength soared by 9 times. It's really incredible. I thought my strength had reached the peak. Even if I completed the last refining, my overall strength would at most increase by 20%. I didn't expect that after completing the 9 refining nirvana, I seemed to have broken an invisible shackle. My overall strength soared by 9 times, and there is still room for improvement. I feel that 13 times is my limit. I can even fight against some late divine king expert. This is really unbelievable. Is this the level of strength that a real heaven's pride should have? Yi Tianzong's eyes were filled with disbelief as he muttered to himself. It was not that his psychological endurance was low, but the gap between the divine king realm and the 6th heavenly layer of myth realm was really too big. Chapter 290. The divine king realm had already condensed the origin of laws. Their strength had leaped by leaps and bounds, surpassing the 6th heavenly layer of the myth realm. In other words, even if there were 1,000 powerhouses at the peak of the 6th heavenly layer of the myth realm, only one could advance to the divine king realm. Under normal circumstances, even 3,000 powerhouses at the peak of the 6th heavenly layer of the myth realm might not be able to defeat a powerhouse at the early stage of the divine king realm. This was the gap between the divine king realm and below. Now, Yi Tianzong had reached the level where he could compete with an ordinary powerhouse at the late stage of the divine king realm through various opportunities and the 9 refinements of nirvana. This was simply unheard of in the 10 mega boundless world. Yi Tianzong was very happy that his strength had leaped by leaps and bounds. After familiarizing himself with the strength after the breakthrough, Yi Tianzong did not rush to find trouble with those enemy forces. Instead, he began to hunt for treasures again. After all, Yi Tianzong came to the world battlefield in addition to fighting with the geniuses of various clans and training himself. Another main purpose was to find various resources to expand his wealth collection. After fighting with his enemies for 100 years, Yi Tianzong was also tired, so he wanted to relax his tense mood by hunting for treasures. While Yi Tianzong was hunting for treasures, he also went to the location of the resource veins and yuan crystal veins that he had discovered to dig some resources and yuan crystals. After spending 20 years leisurely, Yi Tianzong's yuan crystal collection had reached 60 million, and more than a dozen kinds of emperor-level divine materials had more than 1,000 cubic meters. In addition to these, Yi Tianzong had also plundered and seized dozens of emperor-level divine materials and more than 200 divine king-level divine materials after so many years in the world battlefield. Each of them had at least 100 cubic meters of collection. These things were basically robbed from the human forces, which made Yi Tianzong often sigh that robbery was the best way to get rich overnight. After disappearing for 20 years, the Wanderers reappeared again. Those human forces that had been avenged by the Wanderers once again suffered the bloody revenge of the Wanderers. However, what made all the forces feel incredulous was that through the analysis and investigation of the scene, the King of Gods of all the forces discovered that in the 20 years that the Wanderer had disappeared, his strength had actually made another breakthrough and had become even more powerful. 20 years had passed, and the major human forces, which had already relaxed their vigilance, became nervous again. However, they were still powerless in the face of the rogues, who had greatly increased their strength. Once again, a wave of disciples was slaughtered by the rogues. In order not to expose too much of his strength, Yi Tianzong still maintained the strategy of not fighting with the Divine King experts, so that the major forces of the human race did not know how strong the rogues were. This time, Yi Tianzong's revenge was not limited to the human race. All the races and forces that had participated in the pursuit of him were included in his revenge plan. Therefore, the celestial race, heaven race, demon race, and the other 9 great races, who were originally gloating, could no longer laugh this time. The degree of viciousness of Yi Tianzong's revenge on these 9 great races was no less than the degree of revenge on the major human forces. Yi Tianzong showed no mercy to the 9 prodigies of the 9 great races. He did not leave any of them alive. He used sneak attacks, poisons, assassinations, traps, and so on. He also plundered a large number of Emperor and God King level materials, yuan crystals, and other resources. These major forces of the 9 great races finally tasted the feelings of the major human forces in the past. When their disciples guarding the mineral veins were killed, it was absolutely impossible for them to not send people to support. However, if they sent people to support, they would be killed by the Wanderers by any means necessary. They would also lose a large number of mind resources. Once a king of gods appeared, the Wanderers would hide and not appear. When the king of gods disappeared, the Wanderers would start a massacre again. If the king of gods sent out did not leave, the Wanderers would attack other forces, and then find an opportunity to kill them. In short, the God race, the Grey race, the Ancient race, and other 9 great races suffered greatly from the Wanderers' unscrupulous methods. They also suffered heavy losses. After the situation of the other 9 great races was learned by the human race forces who suffered the revenge of the Wanderers, they suddenly felt better. This time, the revenge of the Wanderers lasted for 100 years again. During this period, Yi Tianzong also returned to the profound spirit world for a short period of time. During the 100 years of revenge, Yi Tianzong killed at least 100,000 enemies as a wanderer. Although he also experienced many crises during this period, he killed his way out of the encirclement without exposing his true strength. At the same time, he also seized countless resources and yuan crystals. After fighting a battle of wits and courage with many emperor and sovereign forces for 100 years, Yi Tianzong felt a little tired, so he stopped his revenge. After catching a disciple of an emperor force and saying that he would take revenge again in 100 years, Yi Tianzong hid all traces and disappeared from the world battlefield. In fact, there was another reason why Yi Tianzong decided to stop his revenge. He had searched the souls of some disciples and found out that many supreme forces couldn't stand him anymore. They wanted to invite great emperors to deal with him. Yi Tianzong was not confident to the extent of being able to wrestle with great emperors. Anyway, he was a little tired of it. At the same time, for his own safety, he decided to disappear and never appear again. Yi Tianzong had stayed in the world battlefield for more than 340 years. He planned to leave the world battlefield after 400 years. Although he could also cultivate in the world battlefield and comprehend the 3,000 laws of heaven and earth, it was the world battlefield after all. There was no peaceful and lively atmosphere here like in the vast 1,000 domains. It was not suitable to cultivate here for a long time. Yi Tianzong quietly returned to Xiantian City and saw Elder Sui Yuechuan, who was still stationed here. Seeing Yi Tianzong again, Sui Yuechuan was a little excited and didn't know what to say. In the end, he just said, "It's good that you're back, it's good that you're back." Yi Tianzong turned into a wanderer and wandered in the world battlefield alone. Sui Yuechuan had always been paying attention to the news of wanderers. Therefore, Sui Yuechuan had a general understanding of Yi Tianzong's experience in the past 230 years. When he knew that wanderers were jointly hunted down by most of the races and forces within tens of billions of miles, Sui Yuechuan was nervous, worried, and desperate, but he couldn't show it. At the same time, Sui Wechuan also cursed the human forces who hunted down wanderers in his heart. He hated them to death. Being hunted down by so many forces, even though Sui Wechuan knew that Yi Tianzong was very strong, he didn't have any hope that Yi Tianzong could survive. But later, when wanderers took bloody revenge on the major human forces, Sui Wechuan was surprised that Yi Tianzong was still alive. At the same time, he was also very surprised that Yi Tianzong could still escape from such a desperate situation. It was not until 20 years later that the rogue took revenge on the various racial forces that had once hunted him down. Sui Wechuan finally admired Yi Tianzong from the bottom of his heart. Now, seeing that Yi Tianzong had returned safely and said that he would leave the world battlefield after 400 years, and that wanderers would no longer appear in the future, Sui Wechuan was finally relieved.